What's going on, everybody? Welcome back. It's a brand new episode of Liam Picks Fights. And guys, today we have one of the best UFC cards to break down of the entire year. We've got an incredible panel of guests with whom we're going to be breaking it down. So I'm excited to break down these fights. I'm excited to talk about them with you guys today. Just want to mention off the top, this show, all my content, it's brought to you by two great sponsors, Prize Picks, simplest game in all of DFS. It's basically you against their projections. They put out the projections for NFL, UFC, PFL, as much as you could think of, esports, everything. They've got it. And it's you versus the projections. If you like it, over, under, that's it. It's that simple. So if you guys want to check that out, all the information you need is in the description below. Use my promo code Liam. And then we're going to be talking about the odds today based on oddsjam.com. One of the easiest sites to navigate in terms of understanding these betting odds for multiple sports, multiple markets. My anytime touchdown bets always come from the OddsJam tools as well. So, guys, just worth checking that out. All that being said, guys, we got a great card to break down. We got three incredible guests, friends of the show, power panel, the Four Horsemen. You guys know them by a lot of names. I'm going to introduce my man, Gordo Gambles. We've been at it for a long time. UFC Columbus live in the flesh. My brother for life. How are you? What's going on today?
I'm doing great, my man. It's been way too long since we've done any videos together. I've missed seeing your face. I'm excited to really hear your thoughts, man. And you know what? I've been working a lot of early mornings, so there'd be nobody else I'd be up this late to do a video with. So I'm happy to break down this card, the card of the year. I got so many ways to describe it, but it's going to be even better when I hear us being on the same side of things, which I hope we are. I'm hoping we can talk each other onto some spots. Really looking forward to hear what you have to say, as well as the two other guests. The Horsemen are back, baby.
I love it. I love it. Without further ado, speaking of horsemen, the third horseman, Uncle Lou. Welcome back, brother. How are you tonight?
Well, I wasn't sure if we were doing the sunglasses or not. So
all in. I don't have mine, but I appreciate if you guys have yours. You'd match all the fighters, right? O'Malley, I think Chook had her pair. Everybody's rocking them.
The pride of Quakertown, Pennsylvania, Caitlin Chookagian. I'm excited for this card. Excited to be back with the Horsemen. Obviously, my guys Liam, Gordo, and Wiz. This is my third piece of content of the day, so I'm excited. But I did a prop video with Paul Shaughnessy, an NFL video at Wiz. So let's just actually break down the card fight by fight. I'm excited, man. And thanks everybody in chat for tuning in at this late hour on the East Coast.
I love it.
You.
Sports Equinox. Who else? You know him, the king of the NRFI. He's back. Whiz Bads. How you doing, brother?
Gee Whiz here. What's up, everybody?
Gee Whiz reporting for duty.
Freaking ready. The Four Horsemen are back, and we're back in full effect, baby. Let's freaking break down this card.
I love it. I love the energy, boys. We are ready to crush this card and getting some momentum, I'm feeling good. Got a nice win last week. Felt good about the card. Kept it small, kept it targeted. Felt like my reads were on point. And then the predictions were spazzing last week. My Roto Grinders article was very, very successful. So always looking to do that, looking to dig deep into these fights. And who better to break down these fights with to try and get the best angle possible than you guys. So I'm excited to break it down. Guys, we got a stinker off the top. We got to get through one to get to the gold. And first and foremost, guys, Lena Landsberg and Karol Rosa. It's the fight we're least excited for. So I'm glad they're getting it out of the way early. Most people will probably just be waking up, scratching the sleep out of their eyes and, there's some fights on. Okay, great. Let me brush my teeth, go about my morning and check out what's to offer here. But that being said, me and Gordo had the displeasure personally of sitting through the last Karol Rosa fight where she blew my money. I don't know about you guys, but she definitely bag fumbled for me there. One of the most gassing prone fighters in the division, somebody who's checked out of a lot of fights, quit in a few fights, been submitted a number of times, and is a little bit older, a little bit longer in the tooth, was able to get the better of her, was able to outlast her. And, in that third round, she started to turn it on a little bit. But even my pleading with her from the, back rows of the audience, Karol, more elbows, it just wasn't enough to get her across the finish line there. So I think that in this kind of spot, man, it's probably the time where I don't bet Karol Rosa ITD and then it cashes, because she is fighting somebody, who's like 10 years her senior, who also has been finished in 3 of her 6 professional losses. Granted, it's been some time, but Aspen Ladd, no longer with the company, has a TKO win over Lena Landsberg. Cristiano Cyborg, moved on to women's pro boxing. She's got a win over her via stoppage as well. And that was when she was a lot younger. She's been able to make it through with, pillow fist Pani Kianzad, all due respect. I think, Pani was somebody I bet on to finish this woman inside the distance because of that huge age disparity. And because I've been burnt by trend betting this a little bit the last couple fights, I've been reticent to play anything on this fight. Seemed like a clear pass to me, but I'll kick it to you first, Gordo. Do you have any thoughts here? Anything interesting that you wanted to get off your chest about this fight?
Well, you're bringing back some good memories of Columbus, guys. If you guys don't know, I met him there, and guys, he is even nicer in person, I'll tell you that. But when the fights came on, there was nobody louder in the arena. Just hearing him go, elbows, elbows, more and more of them. No exaggeration there. And where she not has got it done for us there, I really do. She gets home the dub here this weekend. I do think that in the first fight of the night, typically I like to go for violence because I like to think they rope in the viewers with a nice little violent start. But in this one, it really feels like a showcase spot. You got someone who is a big favorite, the younger fighter, someone who I think has a better trajectory in the division going forward. And I do think that this is a spot where she should get a win at a very, very high clip. Do I want to go out there and really parlay Karol Rosa at 345? Not necessarily. Not against many people. Against Lena Landsberg, potentially. I haven't done it. I don't plan on doing it. But really, I do think she wins this fight at a very high clip. So if you are in need of a last-second parlay, she's definitely the piece to go to. I think it's really hard to get to her straight. I think it's really hard to really get to her props because of how volatile this fight could be. You could have her going to decision as she has done in the past. But then against someone like Lena Landsberg, it's going to be always terrifying for that finish to happen at any time. So I really want to stay away from this fight. The pick is going to be Karol Rosa, and I do think she gets her out of there. I'm going to say round 3. However, not a fight what I'm picking with most confidence.
Yeah, man, that all makes sense to me. And, I've just burnt some money betting her to finish. Bechkohea, I bet her to finish the last fight, and then she doesn't even win the fight. So definitely sour taste in my mouth, but you're seeing sharp movements on the markets a little bit towards that inside the distance. Sharp markets already had been shading heavily towards the Karol Rosa decision line, and now they're kind of covering all bases, dropping the lines across all of her finishing props. They're making her money line virtually unplayable just because she seems like an obvious side this weekend. Lou, do you feel the same way, or do you have an unconventional take here?
No, and I'm not going to bet this. I mean, she's implied at this number with 75, 76% to get the win here, which seems about right. She should, but just one thing I've learned the last year of betting women's MMA is I just do not want to get involved with any of these numbers. I've been burned too many times. On the East Coast, this is going to start at 10 a.m. I know for Wiz, it'll be at 7 a.m. when this fight goes off. Sleep in a little bit. You can survive till 7:15 without a bet. And I mean, I don't know what to say. Like, look, I don't think Rosa got like exposed or anything last fight. Sarah McMahon is just a nightmare for certain styles of fights. She got the takedowns going the first 2 rounds. Rosa could do nothing about it, but she looked fresh in the 3rd round. I thought she looked pretty good. Some people were arguing she got a 10-8, which she did not, but she won the 3rd round after being down for 10 minutes, just being grapple effed. So you always respect that they're showing good cardio, but I don't know what Landsberg can really do to her. And Rosa does have the takedowns here if she wants. I don't know about the finish. Landsberg doesn't really get finished a lot. Aspen Ladd and Cyborg are the only people that are finished there. So I kind of want to stay off the props. If you want a parlayer, that's great, but I'm going to lay off this one completely. I'm probably finish whatever Bundesliga first half bet I have for the next fight. For the other fights where I have action on pretty much everything else.
My temptation to play it really stems from the fact that Karol Rosa has landed so many strikes in her fights. She spent a lot of time in dominant positions, and yet she has no finishes yet to show for it in the UFC. And I'm like, man, is the 40-year-old really going to take 150 strikes and, just have the cardio to get, taken down 2 or 3 times against the fence over the course of this fight? That's where it becomes, interesting for me, but still, probably best to just keep your hands clean of this fight. Wiz, what do you got here?
Yeah, so I do think Karol Rosa gets this done. I think she passes this test. I wouldn't even say it's a test. It's a step down in competition, but she handles Landsberg in this fight. I personally do have her parlayed, but I got in early. Not as early as I would like, unfortunately, but I have her at -260 in a parlay. and it's with a fight that's coming up in a couple fights. So I do think that she's able to get her out, similar to Gordo's thought in the third round later, where she's just eating up all the shots. Landsberg is just tired, and then just gasses her out with TKOs, elbows to the ground.
All makes sense to me. And yeah, I think that, when you're dealing with fighters of a certain age, there's always that chance that there's a performance where they just fall off the cliff. Like that last fight, Penny Kianzad and her are both like country women, had a personal rivalry, had fought before. Like maybe that's a motivation spot, whereas this is just like some fight for her. And Carol Hosa's like, I need a win to get my career back on track because I just fumbled the bag in Columbus, Ohio, and fumbled Liam's bag in particular. So with that being said, guys, we can move on from this atrocity. Carol Hosa, best available price in New York betting exchanges, PointsBet -325, the comeback +275 on Pinnacle Sportsbook. Not a lovely sign when Pinnacle is giving you the best underdog price on a fighter, and that would be Lena Landsberg. So shout out to OddsJam for the odds there, and we can move along to the next fight here, guys. Muhammad Mokaev taking on Malcolm Gordon. I don't mind starting here and saying that this is, one of the fights that I feel more confident in. I've had a pretty good read on Malcolm Gordon fights. I know that's going to sound silly, but, I did bet Malcolm Gordon against Denise Bondar +210. Didn't even beat the market price there. I kind of thought people were going to come in on Malcolm Gordon because when I looked into Denise Bondar, he was kind of fighting, affectionately regarded taxi drivers and things like this. It really wasn't a very high quality of competition. Couldn't tell how it was going to translate to the UFC. So I figured Malcolm Gordon was like a big step up in competition for him. And I was willing to play into the variance. This is not a fight where I expect a ton of variance. I kind of think I have a pretty good read of how this is going to go. And, Mokaev is just too dynamic and too dangerous for this guy. I watch his regional fights, his amateur fights. He throws a lot of kicks. He throws a lot of jump knees. He throws a lot of, intercepting punches. And even in his last fight where he wasn't able to finish, he was able to walk down Charles Johnson and land a bunch of clean punches to the chin before he was able to get the takedowns there. And I don't think Malcolm Gordon can take those punches. He has always been a chin liability. He prefers to grapple in his fights. I think Mokaev is willing to, engage him there, but this is like a candidate for, Matt Schnell, Hector Sandoval, where somebody just goes, and just like throws a little hammer fist and then Malcolm Gordon just like shuts off. I could definitely see that happening. So for me, leans towards Mokaev inside the distance here. And, the number's running away and I still want to play it. It's like I'm still very tempted to play it. I don't think that this is a situation like Charles Johnson, who's really gritty and, prides himself on not getting finished. Like Malcolm Gordon has been submitted in the first round. He's been knocked out in the first round. He's been knocked out in the first minute twice in his career. He's been knocked out as an amateur. He's been I could run you through a laundry list of problems with the Malcolm Gordon side. He's also from, with all due respect to my man from the Great White North, Gordo, from the Canadian regional scene, which has some skeptical fighters emerge from the Canadian regional scene at times. And I would argue Malcolm Gordon is kind of one of them. Got a couple of wins now in the UFC. God bless him for it. And he cashed me that ticket. So shout out, respect. I don't think he's going to cash another ticket this weekend. I think Mokaev's going to clean him up and probably do it without much resistance. Gordo, how do you feel about this one?
Yeah, he's not really given the best reputation for guys named Gordon living in Canada, right? So it kind of hurts, right? I wish we had someone, but no, you know what? He's made it UFC, got a couple of wins. What else can you do? But this is a really big step up in competition, and one that looks like to be a setup. To be completely honest, you have someone in Malcolm Gordon who has multiple defensive liabilities and durability concerns, facing the young killer prospect and someone Muhammad Mokaev. They love this guy. They're trying to build him up, and I think this is how they do it. Technically, Gordon's got 2 wins in the UFC. So by giving him this is a step up because it's going to be the guy with the most UFC wins he's got, right? So it is going to be a step up. However, I completely agree with the line. I do think it is Mokaev's fight to lose, of course. I'm taking the under straight as it is. I took the fight doesn't start round 3 at -124. I'm playing the under 1.5 here as well. There are many, many spots in this that really just appeals me because not only does that defensive liability of Gordon come into play here, but you also have his hectic pace in the start. And really, he's had some decent success on the ground in his own right. I'm not saying he has it here, but he's able to put himself in these positions that could potentially work in his favor or against him. Either way, I see a finish happening early. These glasses tend to be my lock of the night glasses. I'm on the fence of wearing them for this one because I do really like the under 1.5 in this spot. But I'll have to hear your thoughts on this one. I really do like the under, and I do think Mokaev gets it done in the first round.
Yeah, man, not going to lie to the people. I definitely have a bet on Mokaev in round 1. Lou, what do you got, brother?
I have a bet, a $10,000 bet on Mokaev and Bo Nickel parlayed to win $8. I think there's a lot of value on this one. Nothing really to break down here that you guys didn't say. I will say that Malcolm Gordon, the Iron Chin Malcolm Gordon, will always have a special place in my heart for beating Figueiredo and almost winning me $100,000 on DraftKings. If not for Misha Tate scoring 9,000 points, I might have had it. But he came towards a dog, and I had the under against in the Bondar fight. I did not think that's how I was going to win that bet, but okay.
Well, I didn't think that's how I was going to win Gordon money line, but we take the green how it comes to us.
So here's the question I want to ask. If you look at the method of victory here, submission is like, almost even money. It's barely, it's a shade 110. Why is KO more than the decision? KO on DraftKings is sitting at plus 240. And here's what I don't understand. Malcolm Gordon's been knocked out 4 times. His chin is certainly a liability. And number 2, if you look at the Durden fight, the whole reason he got the submission was set up by bonking him. Like, the guy has some serious power. He has some striking ability. I don't understand why the knockout is plus 240 in this spot. So I took a poke on it. I think it's very live here. Of course, you can worry about the club and sub, and I get it. But, I mean, a dynamic knockout in the first round would not surprise me here in the slightest. And I think the odds are great for it. So I'm just curious look, we're talking about this all week. A guy with his money line at like minus 1,100 in some spots, only being minus 200 in the distance is weird. And it's like, what don't we know? Like, why is that number the way it is? It's the weight class. Like, I don't really understand it.
I think it started with he goes to the decision, right, in his last fight with Charles Johnson. So then they open it a certain way. And people like us that really get into it are like, wow, like this seems like something that could easily hit. And I think the bookmaker and the average person looks and goes, flyweight fight. This guy just went to decision. They just told me he was going to get the finish last time. So this fight's going to go over. And this fight's going to go the distance. And now everybody else, as the limits open up, is like, fuck that. And they're just hammering the fight not to go the distance. So the line has been going all one way.
Does that scare you?
No, I actually think that here's what would scare me. If everybody was hammering the fight not to go the distance and the line wasn't moving, I would be like, oh God, it's dead. But if everybody's betting it and the line is collapsing, like you could have got Mokaev ITD at minus 167, I think like 3 days ago. It's minus 275. The fight not to go the distance is minus 320 or something. It's like a lot of places have gotten hit or they're moving on air, but they saw a sharp place move and they're like, yeah, let's get away from that right now. And I think that kind of respect is meaningful.
I mean, I'm still going to take it.
Oh, no. I'm saying I think that they're respecting the money on ITD. Sure. I think what they're trying to do always is give lines that they don't mind writing out at a $250 limit.
Absolutely.
No skin off their nose, when they first put out the props. So I think that that's the kind of thing where they get a feeler for the market. It's one of their smaller liquidities, one of the smaller liabilities. And so now when you're seeing it move so aggressively, that to me is a sign of strength. Wiz, what do you think about this fight, man? Do you agree with that take? Are you looking at an ITD? Are you playing the contrarian decision? You're getting plus money on every Mokaev, method, and he's a minus 1,100. I think that's very interesting, and I think that means they're trying to draw people, to pick one way or the other and kind of try and box people out. They get a third of the people, they pay those out, but I think, Lou might be onto something. What do you think?
Yeah, I think the best way to go about it is taking the ITD, even though it's juiced up to the balls. You don't want to take one method and burn yourself when the other method hits. I get it. The juice is just a little too high for some people, but in this scenario, this is one of these spots where I don't see another way this fight goes on. Like I don't see another scenario that this fight plays out in. I don't think there's opportunity for a decision either way. I don't think there's opportunity for Malcolm Gordon to win either way. Obviously, it's a cage fight. Things happen, shit happens. You never know. But I think Mokaev gets this done fairly quick. Now, I haven't taken the ITD yet. I'm not sure if I'm going to get to the window just because I don't like paying that price for an ITD, a specific prop. But in certain situations like this where it's the way I see a fight going, I might have to. The under 1.5 is really appealing to me. The last time I checked, it was around minus 120 or 125. So I'll probably be on that as well. I just don't rate Malcolm Gordon as much, although he is a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt, and I did mention this on Couch Warrior yesterday. You never know. Maybe Mokaev can get in a hairy spot like for a couple moments, but do I think that's going to happen? Probably not, but it's always there.
Can I just add, fight doesn't start round 3 is still sitting at minus 175, which I think is totally reasonable as a price here. Just want to throw that one out there in case people want to do a time prop here.
Absolutely. And the other thing I will mention is the under 1.5 rounds has been taking some action. It opened minus 120. Some people came in on the over. That's what I'm talking about, where there was some movement towards that over initially, and now it's starting to come back the other way. Bet Online, one of the sharpest markets, especially in the online marketplace, now has the best price on the over, minus 105. So very short chalk to the over right now in this fight. For me, that feels a little bit baity. I think that this fight's going to go under, and I like the Mokaev side. So with that being said, guys, we can just mention on the way out here, the best line that you can get on the money line if you are a glutton for punishment is minus 1150 on the DraftKings Sportsbook app. And those guys won't let me play anyway, so I'll have to let it go. And plus 755 on Pinnacle Sportsbook is the comeback on Malcolm Gordon. So if he wins there, you owe him a beer. Now, with that being said, guys, let's move along to the next fight here. Much better fight. I was actually pleasantly surprised, by some of the things I saw from AJ Dobson on rewatch, but I was also horrified by some of the other things I saw, including the striking defense. You know, I do think that he has big power. I think that when he is trying to be a slick operator, he looks a little bit better. You know, he can kind of shoulder roll some shots. He doesn't rush with his chin straight up in the air as much, but I did see him run onto a couple of clean, straight punches against somebody who I don't know is as sophisticated a striker as he's going to be facing this weekend in Petrosyan. And Petrosyan also has those big body kicks. You know, later in the fight with Caio, he was starting to get off on a couple of those. I actually feel like right at the bell there, he kind of rocked Caio with a body kick to the open side, and Caio took 2 steps back. The fight ended, and then he just got down on his knees and just sat there for a minute. He was like, oh, shit, that one, he caught me there. But I feel like in this spot, you know, both guys have a similar amount of experience. I think the guy who's more likely to mix in the grappling is Dobson. So for that reason, you know, maybe you give him some credence. I just think that it's going to be hard for him to do that. Petrosyan showed he's got pretty good core competencies in terms of both defensive hand fighting and building back up his base. But the difference between, you know, somebody like Caio and somebody, you know, like Dobson is if Dobson's on top of him, he's going to be trying to swing hammers at his head and kill him. And, you know, it's not going to be like him trying to go for, you know, the cleanest, you know, most sophisticated back take into this cradle guard. And it's going to be none of that. It's going to be, you know, knee on belly, pound you in the head a couple of times. And if you turn around, lock you in a power RNC. You know, that's not the same as somebody who's trying to be slick and get into a hand fight and set up a choke and be a jiu-jitsu guy. That's somebody who's just power, aggro, catch wrestling style. I see you in a vulnerable position. I'm big and strong. I grab a hold of you and the fight's over. So I think that's, you know, a path to a submission here. It's just like he gets him down in a scramble and locks a hold of him, and he's an insane freak of strength. So he gets a hold of him and he can't get out. But other than that, you know, I do think it's going to be an uphill battle. I think that just strike for strike, exchange for exchange, I kind of trust Petrosyan a little bit more dangerous, probably fits the demographics of the area a bit better as well. Probably who they're trying to promote with this matchup comes in as the favorite in the spot. So all those things kind of point me to Petrosyan, but am I interested in laying, you know, basically a 65+% indication on a guy who's a primary striker and at 185 pounds. No, I'm not thrilled about that. So probably going to let this one go unless I find a prop I really like. Gordo, I'm going to kick it to you first, brother. What do you think?
Yeah, this is an interesting one for me because I talked about really liking this fight from a DraftKings perspective. I know this is a betting show, so it's really weird, but DraftKings wise, I don't mind this fight because not only does AJ Dobson's win condition probably score pretty well with the finish, I do think this fight is most likely to end inside the distance. And although it is pretty juiced, that's the reason why I'm playing it mostly on DraftKings and not really from a betting perspective. I don't necessarily think I can get there on the window on either side. I think when it comes to a pick, I think it's a buy low spot in Petrosyan. I think he's the better mixed martial artist in this spot. I don't really necessarily think Dobson can really get him down or hold him down. And I do think that on the feet, Petrosyan is going to have the advantage in the technicality, in the striking aspect of this sort of thing. So for me, it's a fight that ends inside the distance, a fight that ends by KO, and I'm going to lean for it being Petrosyan a lot of the time. However, the way the lines are, it's going to be a pass from the betting perspective, but official pick will be Petrosyan KO.
I like it. Lou, what do you think, my man?
I'm going to go a little contrarian here. I think that I agree with Gordo that I think Dobson's prime win condition is round one, probably round one KO. Also, we haven't talked about this, but Petrosyan, even in his in all his regional tape, he's kind of a slow starter. He's not a guy that comes out and blasts right away. He's looking to counter in the first round of a lot of the fights. At least that's what I'm seeing here. I think Dobson could go to the takedowns. I think it might be interesting. We also know that they're both powerful. They both have knockout power. We could see it being tentative here early. Over 1.5 is minus 129 on DraftKings, and I love it because I kind of lean toward Petrosyan winning late or winning a decision. I'm just going against the grain for here. I could see it. Look, you get two strikers that are very, very powerful, both coming off losses. There's a little bit of tentative nature. It's people don't want to make a mistake. And with these guys, with their one-punch power, I think there will be a lot of dancing around the first couple minutes of this fight. You don't want to have two losses in a row in the UFC. You don't want to get bonked by the other guy. I think we may see a little bit of a dance. I think Dobson certainly should test out the wrestling early and maybe avoid any kind of catastrophic first round thing. So give me over 1.5. Look, I'll be clenching my butt cheeks for 7.5 minutes with this kind of bet. But I really don't see a first round finish here either way. If there's a finish, I do think it's the Petrosyan side, and it's probably late second. We're third round. Round three, I'm sure pays pretty well. I haven't looked at that prop yet, but give me the over 1.5. Petrosyan's the pick for the sake of picking a side, but over 1.5 is my bet for this fight.
Yeah, we are in the big cage here, and Petrosyan's takedown defense against Kai Borralho looked like shit. Just straight up, Kai looked like he was timing his takedowns well, but he was going head outside double, not in his power direction. It wasn't a blast double. There wasn't really that much force behind it, truth be told. You have to cut a harder angle to really generate a lot of power. And he was taking him down easily. He was just wrapping him up at the knees. And so, if there's one thing to replace being good at technical wrestling, it's being a physical hoss and grabbing a hold of somebody by the hips and just sending them wherever the hell you want to. So I think Petrosyan has gotten away in some stages with being a physical hoss. And I think he might get thrown around a little bit, at least in that first round. I just think that his staying power is a little bit more proven so far at this level. Wiz, what do you think of this matchup?
I just want to add one.
I
just want to add one more point to this too. As another reason I like the over 1.5. Gregory Rodriguez broke his face and then took his back, and he was up in 10 seconds. I'm just putting that out there. Even if Dobson does start cracking him, Petrosyan can take a shot. So that just leads me more toward that over. I don't know that Dobson can one punch get him out of there. It may have to be a volume knockout, even for the power I've seen with Dobson. So just all these things in my heart point to over 1.5 as my play.
I like it. Fair enough. And Wiz, what do you think, man?
Yeah, this one I have no bets on. I do think Petrosyan round 2, round 3 is an interesting look that I'll have to take into consideration a little bit closer to fight day, because I think round 1 it might go to Dobson. I think he might steal it just with the grappling attempts, even though he might not be successful at them. But if he gets him down and controls him for a minute or two, I think he could steal the round. Petrosyan finish is I'm not gonna say it's not possible, but I'd rather lean towards a decision here, just to cut off from that money line price. And I I kind of like both of these guys' chins, as weird as that sounds. They can both take a punch. The issue for me is Dobson tends to wilt towards the mid to end round two to the end of the fight. So how is that going to play a factor when it comes to the power of Petrosyan and the technical striking that he brings to the table? Is he going to be able to counter it? Is he going to be able to effectively dodge and maneuver around these strikes, or is he just going to keep shooting these weird takedowns that he will get nowhere with since he's tired, just gas shooting? So that's why I lean a little bit more towards Petrosyan decision. But overall, at the moment, no bets. I do think Petrosyan takes this one and gets back on track.
Yeah, the real problem for me and what ultimately kept me off Dobson, even if I felt like, maybe he could mix in the wrestling, the grappling, it's just the fact that he walked into a lot of Malkoun jabs. And like, if Jacob Malkoun is landing cleanly on you without much resistance, I just struggle to back you in a fight with somebody that's got pretty good takedown defense and credible striking. Muay Thai practitioner. He's got punches. He's got kicks. He can go to the body. He can go to the head. And I just don't know that I could trust Dobson down the stretch. Really, Malkoun has proven himself allergic to finishing, even with a completely, devastated Maximov in front of him. The guy can't get him out of there. And I had a small position on him to win the fight inside the distance fight, not to go, because of the way the liabilities are shaken out. And I just couldn't believe that. I was like, man, no matter what happens, this guy will not finish a fight. And I think we got to take that into account with Dobson as well. Dobson was, gassing out a little bit there and starting to break. And, he had a guy that really let him off the hook. This guy's not going to let him off the hook. I think if he has an opportunity, he will try and finish. The one prop that just stuck out to me, I haven't played it. I probably won't, but just thought it was interesting, was fight ends in final round or goes to decision plus 118. That seems kind of interesting. It's kind of like what you're talking about in terms of leaning towards the fight to go over, but also just having a feeling that like both these guys probably could take some shots, but the accumulation of damage down the stretch, the fact that Dobson has been known to gas out a little bit, it could make for, that round 3 possibility for a finish. So that was what caught my eye, but probably just going to let this one go and root for the guy from Ohio because that's the way I roll. Next up, guys, we got Abu Bakr. What's that?
My bad. One last thing about that fight is if you look at Petrosyan's last 2 opponents, it's Caio and it's RoboCop. So you're going from here to right here with the level of competition. So in my opinion, this is a big get right spot for Petrosyan.
Yeah, that makes sense to me as well, man. I kind of feel the same way. And just as we move off this fight, guys, Armen Petrosyan, best available line, minus 205 on DraftKings Sportsbook. And you can get the comeback on AJ Dobson, plus 180 via Caesars. So shout out to OddsSham for those odds. Now we got Abu Bakr, Nurmagomedov. Seems like everybody's favorite, punching bag this week. Everybody wants to take a shot at the guy. Yeah, he got subbed by Zawada. Looked like a bum there, but UFC jitters are a real thing. Now the man got one win under his belt, sent Jared Gooden packing. It's probably a battle of who keeps a UFC contract. And then you got Omarzagiev on the other side here. And, I just rewatched, it's like right fresh in my mind, the fight with Caio. And in that fight, he did a decent job landing some overhand rights. Believe it or not, he got a takedown of his own in that fight, caught a kick, followed him to the ground, instantly got swept. Like I'm talking the second they hit the ground, this guy was flat on his back, getting passed into the mount and his back taken. So that was for me a little bit concerning. Did a good job hand fighting. Some guys can hand fight and be disciplined and survive, and some guys just can't. Some people break under the pressure. He did a good job surviving, but boy, he was caught in those positions for a lot of the fight. And the other thing was, as the fight wore on, he was starting to get diddy bopped. He was starting to get hit cleanly a lot. And I did not like to see that. He was still throwing back. He was still landing some of his own shots, but it felt like he really let Caio build into the fight on the feet. And then he got taken down in every round. He got controlled for multiple minutes in basically each of the rounds. And so I felt like Caio, pretty clearly did his thing there. And this is, not an easy bounce back fight. Abu Bakr, I think that striking performance against Jared Gooden was pretty impressive. I don't think it was anything to, blow your hair back, but it was just competent. He didn't put himself in great danger, fought a pretty smart game plan, kept him on the outside. I think if most people had been quizzed before who's going to get rocked in this fight, I think they would have said Nurmagomedov. He was the one rocking him with the jab, just keeping it in his face and being the more disciplined guy. Better hand position, throwing more often, going first. I felt like he just did what you would want to see from him. And in this kind of case, like Godsey, he has the nice, beautiful pro record. He shows a knockout loss in 2018 on his amateur record. So in the middle of his pro career, he's got an amateur loss by knockout round 1. He got decimated, basically just dominated by Caio Borralho as a favorite on the Contender Series. And now he's getting love again here as an underdog. Just want to see more from him before I would invest at this stage, plagued by inactivity as well lately. And, getting back in the cage here, I think that this is an opportunity for him. It's a winnable fight. I don't think either guy is head and shoulders above the other, but just in terms of their most recent performance, I thought I saw crisp, striking and pretty, composed, poised performance from Abu Bakr in his last fight. And now he's got another opportunity to build on that. He's got 2 fights under his belt in the organization. So he really just is starting to settle into the UFC. And I feel like this is another winnable fight for him. So I wouldn't be surprised if he boxed his way to a decision. And, frankly, the way Godsey was getting hit cleanly in that last fight and took a lot of damage, I wouldn't be surprised if he just got caught and put down in this spot. And I don't think a lot of people are expecting this fight to finish. So I think that could be, kind of a surprising angle. I'm not saying that that's like my expected method of victory. I would think that it's a decision more often than not, but I just think that people, are pegging this as like, this is a clear decision or Godsey's going to get him. And I think that, the finishing equity is at least 50-50, if not Abu Bakr, favored in the finish markets as well. So Gordo, how do you feel about this one?
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up because I am sneakily on the under in this spot here. I think there's a lot of factors really at play. When it comes to taking a side on the money line, I do think that Abu Bakr is rightly favored, but I don't think it's necessarily one where you can be really confident on either money line side. I think that both these guys have a lot to prove in terms of, having decent skill sets, but really haven't lived up. I know that Abu Bakr has slipped up a couple times and Guts really hasn't had the opportunity to live up to anything. So really when I'm taking a step back and I'm looking at their finishing potential, I both think they have some. So when I see this fight lined at plus 150, not the distance, that's kind of where I'm looking here. Not only does Abu Bakr have sneaky power, Gotsey's got some great ground game, great transitions there. Abu Bakr's been caught before. Gotsey may be able to catch him there. But another thing that I'm really liking is Gotsey coming down for the first time. I mean, he's going to be making that weight cut. He's going to be a different than he usually has been. I'm really interested to see how that's going to affect him here. I think that maybe helpful to play into the potential card knockout, but I do think that it's going to be a close fight. I think it's a pretty interesting one, but if I had to make any bet, it would be on the under here, and I probably will do so at plus 152.
I like it, man, and that probably tracks with just the natural finishing rate within the division. I think this is a pay-per-view where a lot of fights I don't believe are favored to end inside the distance. So, maybe a couple sneak finishes come across for the people, keeps that bout order, moving a little bit. That would be nice to see. And I like where your head's at with that under. Lou, how do you feel about this one?
Gordo took my thunder on that one. I really do like the under here. I don't know. As far as the side, I don't really have the confidence in Nurmagomedov that you do. I do think you could write the Zawada fight off. I understand that. We've seen it before. We've seen people lose their first fight and go on runs. I understand that. First cage jitters are a real thing. But we're also, I don't think this can be denied, we're paying a tax for the name with the line. You're certainly paying probably 20 cents more just because of his name, because people are going to see it and assume a completely wrestling-based game plan. And that's not going to be the case there, I don't think. We don't know what Godsey's going to look like down 170. To be honest, I can't get a read on this guy. I've watched this tape. I don't know what to make of him. I don't know if he's really skilled, if Caio is just that good and made him look foolish, which is certainly possible. Caio seems to be making people look really bad. Gordo's guy Phoenix, screams from the heavens from Caio, loves him. So maybe it's Caio making people look bad, but we'll see. Looks like at the weight. But every time that, Nurmagomedov's lost, it's been inside the distance. So you have to factor that in. And I think he does have finishing chops here against a guy making a weight cut. The weigh-ins are going on what, right now?
Something like that.
So we'll have to see what he looks like. I mean, if there's any issues, but I think both have finish potential here. And I love that we're getting plus money, especially at a fight at 170. So everything Gordo said, man, give me that time prop. I went over in the fight that everybody thinks is going to finish. And now I'm going under in a fight that I'm not trying to be a contrarian, but I think it's weirdly priced here, and I'll take the stab at it.
I like it, man. I like where your head's at. Betting on violence, getting away from the sides with two unreliable, untrustworthy guys and looking for one of them to do something stupid and get finished by the other. That's a beautiful way to approach it. Wiz, what do you got?
Yeah, this fight is a complete pass for me. I can't get any confidence on either side. They've both looked horrible. They both let people down in the past. I don't rate any of their striking. Abubakar is ever so slightly. And I don't trust him to go down and take that wrestling path that most people think he would, just associated by the name. But yeah, the under is not a bad look. The fear I have with the under is this fight just stalling. And by stalling, I mean it's just a sparring match, just a kickboxing sparring session here for 3 rounds. And that certainly can happen. I've seen both guys do it. So I'm staying away completely. I don't have a favorite side in here on this fight. So I didn't want to force action.
I love it, man. And there's a lot of fights on this card. There's a lot of fights coming up. We got another fight card next week. If there's a, fight that just isn't speaking to you, you could leave it on the cutting room floor. I think this is one of the best ones to do that with. Neither one of these guys is extremely reliable, but I do just feel like Abubakar is a little bit more complete, a little bit more, promotionally backed, a little bit more of a long-term play for the promotion. Whereas I know Godzi's the younger guy here, but just didn't seem by the matchmaking that they gave him at the jump that they're really trying to set this guy up for success. So with that being said, guys, we can move along to the next fight here. Just want to mention on the way out, best betting line, -165, DraftKings Sportsbook for Abubakar Nurmagomedov and Godzi Omarzagiev on the comeback, +145 over at PointsBet. So shout out to OddsJam for those best available odds here in the New York betting market. Now, Zubaira Tuhugov is taking on Lucas Almeida. And I've only bet one time on a Zubaira Tuhugov fight, and I cashed that bet, ladies and gentlemen. 0.9 units, Hakeem Dawodu, +112 on the money line. Had a 0.25 unit shot on Hakeem to get that done by knockout. Could not deliver for me on the prop market, but he was chasing him down. He was yelling, "Stop running." Great fight. And, big bounce back fight that we saw from Zubaira last time out. Was able to get the win, beat Ricardo Ramos in that spot. But I don't know about this one. This is one where I'm feeling like Lucas Almeida, he cashed me very nice tickets his last time out. +190 on the money line, +400 inside the distance. This is a guy that I think brings big power. He lists himself as a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt. Maybe not the world's best black belt you've ever seen, but at least that means he's spent a lot of time on the mats, a lot of time grappling, won't be extremely uncomfortable if he's put there. And he does tire out a little bit, but that's because he spends himself trying to win the fight. He's going to throw everything. He's going to try and hit this guy. He's going to try and hurt him. He's going to try and put him out. And I think that the question of who will break and give in to fatigue earlier in this fight is Zubaira Tuhugov more often than not. However, I think that there is, some potential that Zubaira just comes out and nukes him early. He's a very fast starter. He lands clean punches. Almeida's taken a lot of damage in his most recent fights, and he's taken a lot of damage in his career. He's a shit-eating wild man. That gives and it takes away. He could definitely get knocked out in the spot, but I feel like if he's able to keep that pace going, kind of like he did with Trezano, it wasn't like he went through that fight unscathed, but he's willing to take a big shot to give one, and he can throw in combination. So I feel like a lot of times guys will land a big shot, then they have to chase somebody down, then they have to line up the next shot. Because he's throwing so many shots in tandem, he finds bop, like 2 lands at a time, 2 big thumps, and puts people's lights out. I think he could do it again. So if anything for me, it's a dog or pass situation. I'll be looking potentially at an Almeida inside the distance play on this fight. while I respect Zubaira Tuhugov, while I understand he's got some of those home field advantages and father's plan and all the, narratives, I just think that this is a fight that's going to be competitive more often than not. And I think that Almeida has that big boink. I think he can beat this guy. And I'm not going to discount that just because, a lot of people in the market are. He opened as a favorite here. It's been bet the other way. People still coming in on the Zubaira Tuhugov side. I respect that action, but I'm also just gonna trust my read here, and I think Lucas Almeida can bang with anybody in the lower end of the division. I don't think that Zubaira Tuhugov is a top 5 elite in the division or something like that. So I feel like if he's going to split decision with everybody and he's going to swing down in the pocket with this guy, I feel like he might get diddy bopped, and that's what I'm looking for. So Lucas Almeida via first round diddy bop would be the ultimate payment for me. Gordo, what do you think, brother?
This is a very, very interesting matchup, not only from the prop market, but also from a drafting side of things. I'll get to that shortly. I think if we look at this from a broader perspective, we see a guy, Tuhugov, who has, decent skills. He's able to stifle his opponents recently. He's able to slow them down. And is he able to slow down Lucas Almeida? I don't think so. Lucas Almeida comes out shot out of a cannon. And that's why I think this fight is so fun, because he's not going to stop. He's going to be throwing every single punch with fight-ending intention. And I do think that maybe the under's a little bit mispriced here. The fight doesn't go to decision, is sitting at plus money. I think that both these guys have fight-ending power. We talked about that last fight for Almeida. Although he did get that finish, when he did get dropped by a guy in Trezano who doesn't possess the most power. So I do think that they could probably each one finish each other. I personally would like an Almeida round 3 finish. I think that's the one where I'm cheering for the most, because it wears him down, gets him out of there. Cast an under as well. But an interesting prop on this one, because I think I've mentioned this a few times throughout my streams. Zubaira Tuhugov, although he has had good success striking with people, winning minutes on the feet, he has a sneaky takedown upside. And I think he has an ability to go out there and really secure takedowns if he wants to slow down Lucas Almeida. And I do think that if he does so, he can not only add to his DraftKings score, but add to his chance to win the fight. I think if we look at this from a spot, who has more minute winning potential and who has more ability to win a decision, it will be Zubaira Tuhugov. So the decision only line on DraftKings for Tuhugov is kind of interesting at minus 160, just because I do think he wins the decision more times than Almeida does. Either way, I'm kind of hoping for violence here, because both of you guys do have power, but this is going to be a pass as of now, unless I hear some great thoughts from the two beautiful guys below me.
Yeah, I can tell you one thing as I kick it over to my man Lou here. Is just Almeida by decision is plus 225 on sharp markets, and that's a little bit surprising to me. That's a little bit lower than I expected it to be. I think that's just because Zubaira has survived to the bell in a couple of these fights where he was starting to really suffer and gas out and run away from my man Mean Hakeem. So I couldn't cash that plus 525, that son of a bitch. But anyways, I think that in this spot, like, Lucas Almeida is not going to give him that break. He's not going to let him off the hook. So I would be much more intrigued by the ITD than I would by the decision personally, especially with all the other contextual factors. Like maybe the crowd's going to go, every time he gets taken down, and maybe not support him when he gets some offense off. So for me, it's going to be Almeida probably needs to really risk it to get the biscuit here. And that's what I'm looking for. Lou, what do you think?
So I've been too calm to this point in the show. I think it's time to step up the nonsense. I can't ignore all the split decisions, and I hope Tim Troiano's watching in chat, because this is a Tim and Lou special. I love the split decision here, but I actually love the split decision because of how I think the fight's going to play off. I think Tuhugov can get takedowns early in this fight. To your point, Liam, I like so much more on the Almeida side. He's more active. He's more dynamic. I think his cardio was really good. I don't love his striking defense, but I don't see that being a real problem here. Like his liability, the one liability I see in him, I don't think is an issue in this fight. I think getting kind of wrestle effed is his problem. So I see a path where he could be down 2 rounds and come out in the 3rd round and 10-8 him or finish him. But I am on all the split decision props here. Split decisions plus 450. Almeida splits plus 1100, which is so sexy. But do you know what's sexier than that? The draw at plus 6,600 odds on FanDuel. I honest to God believe a draw is possible here if Tuhugov just grapples him for 2 rounds and Almeida comes out like saw it against Zaluber. He looks good in the 3rd round. So okay, everybody wants to talk about
I
fight
think
canceled.
this fight just got canceled.
Almeida?
Yeah,
Yep.
BJPen.com just tweeted it out. Jay Petri just.
Are you dead serious? I literally
Yep.
just bet.
So mad.
I just bet on Almeida, and I just bet the draw. So now I'm gonna have all my fun fucking wrapped up on Bet Online. God,
This
man,
is one of my favorite fights on the prelims.
What's that?
This is one of my favorite fights on the prelims. Oh man.
Yeah, that they literally were like, "Oh shit!" Liam just told everybody about the plus 400 ITD on Almeida. Pull the plug.
Yep.
It's over.
Stop the fight.
It's over. Oh, that's disgusting. But
well, my
I guess,
analysis was still solid, I think. I just want to say that my analysis on it was still.
So whatever you guys just heard over the past 10 minutes from us, you could just wipe that out of memory.
Remember,
I was gonna say, Wiz, I'd give you the floor, but I really don't think it's worth talking about it anymore.
Yeah, I'm gonna go full Men in Black and just gone.
So what we could do instead is we can kick the next fight off with my man Wiz first here, so he can get back involved in the action. And Wiz, we've got an action banger at 205 pounds, and historically one of my very best divisions, believe it or not, somehow for betting has been the 205-pound class. And we've got a light heavyweight clash here between Volkan, No Time Oezdemir, and, No Time used to be about knockouts. It's now about, no time left in these fights worth watching. And Nikita Krylov on the other side came out, absolutely blitzkrieged Alexander Gustafsson, kind of just showed that Alex was way past prime and, shouldn't be doing this anymore, honestly. And I think for Krylov here, another big opportunity. He's got a lot of wins under his belt in this recent run in the light heavyweight division. Paul Craig subbing you from the guard. Nobody's above that. No prospect, certainly. And Krylov's still relatively young in the division, and I think he's got more upside than somebody like Volkan at this stage. I think he's got the grappling upside personally. And I think from a striking perspective, I'd rate it as fairly even. The guy who's more likely to get the knockout, I actually think is Krylov, especially in the early going. But I also think that Krylov's pacing is sometimes that of a Neanderthal. So he could easily gas himself out and get nuked in the second. But for me, just a fight where I think that Krylov more often than not is going to get the nod here by beating the hell out of this guy and taking him down if he gets hurt. So for me, Krylov, the dynamic kicks, I think, are going to make a difference here. He's a much longer kicker than somebody like Volkan who has to really kick the legs. He's not really a dynamic kicker to the body or the head. So I feel like the variety of tools that he's able to employ and the advantage in the grappling makes Krylov a deserved favorite, but it is light heavyweight. There is some variance. They call him No Time for a reason. He did send a couple guys to the shadow realm in the first couple minutes in his first few UFC fights. So I don't think he's the same guy. I think he's looked a lot more diminished in recent performances. But who's to say? It's light heavyweight. There's still 205-pound guys slinging hammers. So somebody could go down here. But I just have a feeling that more often than not, Krylov finds a way to get his hand raised here. Wiz. Let's kick it off with you, brother.
Just one last piece about the last fight. It got pulled due to weight management issues, not specifying which fighter. So just putting that on the record. But for this fight, it's a fight that I'm very invested in. I have a bet on Krylov inside the distance. I think he does the same thing that he did in his last fight and just bull rushes Oezdemir here. Now, I'm also on the under 2.5 as a hedge because I feel that if he does go with his game plan and it's unsuccessful, he will gas out, which would lead for an opportunity for Oezdemir knockout. I like both of these sides. Krylov looks like he's the fighter that's projected to go a little bit further on from this day and time. Oezdemir looks like a shell of himself over the past couple of fights. He hasn't really looked all that well in the striking defense department. I'm not the biggest fan of his performance in his last fight against Paul Craig, although he did win and cash me a ticket. He should have got Paul Craig out of there, and he was not reacting well to the shots that Paul Craig was delivering. And Paul Craig's striking is nothing to be too proud of. I'm not going to diss the man with his striking, but we all know Paul Craig for his submissions, not his striking. So for me, I definitely I think Krylov gets this done early and often, probably in round 1.
Paul Craig, Kung Fu fighter. Don't sleep on them hands, bruh. Lou, what do you got here, brother?
The absolute same thing that Wiz does. I think Krylov's going to murder him. I'm not impressed with Oezdemir. I will say that I'm also angry at Oezdemir because the only shoey bet I have ever lost in MMA Twitter was with Paul Shaughnessy because I took Paul Craig to win that fight. So maybe I'm just chasing that loss. I don't know. But I like everything I've seen with Krylov. And look, if we want to use Paul Craig as a barometer for both of them, Krylov's performance, I know he lost, but his performance is 100 times better. He made a mistake, but he looked really good until it's a Paul Craig fight. You know, he's what do they say? He's like 2-8 and fights he's won, or 8-2 and fights he's lost. I mean, like Krylov looked great, was winning every second of that fight, much to my dismay, because I had a bet on Paul Craig for that. But I like everything I've seen with Krylov. I don't know if he gets a knockout or a submission. I would lean more toward knockout because I don't love Oezdemir's chin, but I have Krylov in the distance. I got him at plus 120, and I got fight doesn't start round 3 at minus 120. DraftKings just had like a 50-cent difference between that and the under 2.5, and I like that so much more because if this thing hits the third round, I don't think Oezdemir is getting a finish in round 3, and I don't know what Krylov's going to look like in round 3. He might be death gaffed. So to me, under 2.5, fight doesn't start round 3. Pretty similar stuff to me, but I think Krylov gets it done with relative ease. I really just haven't been that impressed with Oezdemir either, like Wiz said.
I understand, man. Neither one of these guys inspires a great amount of confidence. Gordo, what do you think?
Yeah, it's an interesting one here to put it. You know what? Generally, I think if we look at this from the Krylov side of things, he came to the UFC, had a third round loss, then rifled off 14 fights, ending in the first and second round. I mean, the guy was complete violence, slowed it down a bit in the next two, but then he's back to his violent ways, and I really like that in a fighter who's able to go out there balls to the wall. Because me as a DraftKings player, that's GPP written all over it. But I do think this is a spot where he's able to create violence and create chaos, and it's something like that. Not only does it give him a better chance to find a way to make Oezdemir exit this fight, but it also gives a chance for Oezdemir to stay in it. Oezdemir, Mr. No Time, has been in fights where he's been able to be a slow-paced affair, and that hasn't really fared his way. That's why we've seen decisions. But every time he's really been rushed, been pressured, we've seen violent exchanges where people have been finished. And I do think this is another one of that sort. I'm not going to pick a side. Of course, I think I agree with you guys. I'm taking the Krylov side here a bit. But if we look at this from a broader perspective, I can really see him gas out, right? So give me the under, give me violence. I think we're going to take the fight doesn't go round 3 because Lou sounded decent with that one, but I maybe the under 2.5 might be the way to go.
Heck yeah, man. And I'm looking right now, they're actually booking on some places the 1.5 rounds. So looks like most books are hanging the 2.5 rounds as the predominant total. It's looking like a minus 170 virtually across the board, but they're hanging plus 120 to the under 1.5 rounds. And I feel like that's almost the same kind of bet here. Like you guys were mentioning, if it gets to the end of the second round here, probably both guys are tailing off in cardio. I could definitely see a positional ground and pound type of TKO, from the top position. We've seen Krylov open up with ground and pound in the past. The one pass I'll give him on the Johnny Walker fight is that Johnny's like a big, awkward body. So some of the grappling exchanges there, I think were a little more difficult. He got swept and stuff, but I think that Volkan is a lot less versed on the ground. And so I just think that he will probably get run in that department. Now, according to OddsJam, best available lines that we've got here, Nikita Krylov minus 170 on the money line. That's at Caesars Sportsbook. You can find plus 152 on the comeback for Volkan Oezdemir. That is at FanDuel. So finally, a couple of these other, higher vig books making their way into the scene here. And that leads us to the next fight on the card. Makhmud Muradov, Kai Borralho. Oh boy, I'm putting a pretty decent resume together on these Kai Borralho bets. I bet him on the money line in his recent fights. I bet him against Godzi 3 units at plus 120 on the Dana White, or I don't know if that was his UFC debut or the Contender Series. Felt like a Contender Series fight, but either way, was able to cash on him in that spot. Was able to cash on him against Petrosyan last time out to win 2 units, and I hit by KO plus 400 against James Murray on the Contender Series. So basically, I've been on this Kai Borralho train for a little bit. I think he's a talented grappler. I think that his timing on his takedowns is good. But the one thing that did stand out to me upon rewatch of some of these, fights that he's had, his cardio is tiny bit suspect. That's the one thing that I really didn't like, is that he started to visually look more tired in that third round, especially in the fight against Petrosyan, where I mentioned like Petrosyan lands that body kick as he's trying to back up at the end. And I feel like if there's a little bit more time left in the fight, we could be telling a little bit of a different story there. So I do think he's got to mind his P's and Q's here. When you talk about somebody like Muradov, his first 3 fights in the UFC, he looked fine. He went out there, he did his job, he was throwing a lot of strikes, he was fighting a lot of strikers, right? And I've mentioned this on a couple other streams, but like, look at the guys he was beating. Alessio Di Chirico hasn't been able to buy a win, in the UFC, except for that, front-loaded head kick against Joaquin Buckley, right? Then we look, who else was he able to beat? Andrew Sanchez, no longer with the company. And frankly, like, didn't attempt to wrestle very much in that fight, didn't get very close in that fight, has kind of plotting footwork, and he stands way straight up in the air, which is why it's really hard for him to wrestle. He's not close to his target. He's not really setting it up with his strikes. So I felt like all that was destined to fail. I think the connective tissue for Kai Borralho is a lot better than some of these guys that he was able to best in his earlier run. And now when we're talking about somebody like Muradov, who did get pretty summarily run by GM3 on the ground, I want to give him the caveats that he was fouled there. One of the themes of this card is that a lot of these guys were fouled in their recent fights and like kind of give these weird impressions of how they played out. And I think that's one of them. Kai Borralho got taken a point, and I think it went to technical decision against Godzi as well for a low or like a knee as he's standing up along the fence line. So a lot of fouls in these fighters' tape. And Muradov did get poked in the eye. He did get kicked in the nads. He was having a real tough go of it. But he also got, finished really quickly when it went to the ground. And I talked before about some guys are really good in the hand fight, and they're poised and they're competent and they don't really give a chance to get finished. That was absolutely not the case. They got put in a bad position. The fight was over shortly thereafter. I was jumping up with joy for my man GM3, but totally different scenario, I think, in this spot, and I also think Kai Borralho, he hasn't been able to find that submission yet in the UFC, but it's not for a lack of trying. It's because he's got these big muscle hosses that are 2-on-1ing the wrist and just trying not to get finished and knowing like, I'm going to concede this round. Like most of them aren't even trying to get out anymore. They're just like, I need to not get finished. I need to hold on and wait for my opportunity to get back up. So that's the kind of thing that I think that Kai Borralho in this fight, if he has Muradov, especially tired, fatigued, and he's in a dominant position at any point, I think he is going to get the sub. I think he's probably levels above him on the ground. And Muradov on the feet, he's going to be dangerous. He's going to be competitive. He's going to be able to, stick that jab in his face. I'm not necessarily rushing to play the money line on him like I have in previous spots, because this is a little bit more open questions. But the sub line, I might be interested. Just because I don't think that I can rate this guy. I don't think I could trust him if the fight goes to the ground. And Kai Borralho has shown a number of different ways of taking the fight to the ground. He's hit trips. He's hit counter judo throws. He's also gone level change, double leg takedown to both sides. Like the guy just has shown a number of ways to get the fight to the ground. Also think he's pretty strong. I think he's got good leverage. Apparently he's been training overseas as well, trying to get more wrestling looks. I like all of it. I think that Kai Borralho is a potential sleeper here. I know he's a favorite, but a lot of people like the underdog. I don't, take any fault with people that want to go to that side. But for me, it's not what I was looking to do here. Probably a prop or pass situation for me. And I'm going to lean towards Kai Borralho to get this job done by sub or decision. Gordo, how do you feel?
Yeah, we have seen a lot of love, or especially when I'm doing these breakdowns, I've been seeing a lot of love for the Muradov side of things. And you know what? All credit to you guys taking the shot on there. Not my style. We actually see a better line for Borralho coming in, and I hope it gets even better because I will be playing him this week. I'm a huge Kai Borralho fan, just like you. I cashed on him recently, and I do think that although he has some decent aspects to his game, my favorite part about his game is he's got high fight IQ. I think he's a very smart guy. He knows exactly what he has to do. And that's what I want to see in a guy I'm backing, someone who knows what he has to do to get the win and will do whatever it takes to do so. In this situation, I think that the difference into the grappling is just a lot wider than the difference in the striking. And with the fight IQ and the ability for Kyle Borralho to recognize that he has to take it to the ground, I think that's exactly what I want to see in someone I want to back, especially at this price tag. I think that he has the advantage to get it there. He really times his takedowns very, very well. He blends it in with his strikes. And even though Muradov is probably going to have the power and striking advantage on the feet, not like Kyle Borralho is a bad striker. He's got a decent ability to keep it upright as well. So I do think this is a Kyle Borralho fight for me. I will be playing the money line, but what I will say is I did lock in a nice little CLV bet of the submission at plus 550 when it opened. I know he's been typically positioned.
Holy shit, dude! It's plus 300.
It was hanging out there. I got a
Not-
nice.
not a
My
lot of-
man, my man Tim was on the plus 460, and I was jealous. Boy, oh boy, plus 550. Score.
I did not hammer it. I'll tell you that. I only have, I think, 0.4 units on it just because I'm playing the money line as well, right? But I do think that it's a nice spot there. Apologies for playing it before the limits opened up, but I had to get on that plus money while I did. For me, I know he's been typically position over submission, but I think this is a spot where he doesn't have to worry about the hand fighting, doesn't have to worry about the explosiveness of someone like Petrosyan getting up. He can really go out there and submit him if he does get him to the ground. And unlike Petrosyan, I do think Muradov is more content to stay on the ground if Borralho has that control time, has that backpack. And I think he backpacks himself to a win and submitting him later on as well.
The only other dynamic I would mention is just Petrosyan is a little bit more flat-footed. I do think, especially in the early going, Muradov's a lot lighter on the feet. It's a lot more bouncy, but I just don't think that Kyle Borralho is going to shy away from those early striking exchanges. In every fight, basically, he comes across, he gets aggressive. He seems like he's got a pretty decent chin because he's taken, one or two clean shots, but he's normally answering right back. He landed an open hand slap and a right hand that sent Petrosyan flying in the early going of their fight. And I really think that got all the respect he needed to back him up and walk him down along the fence line. And in this big octagon, I think that's the most important thing. He's got to get a little bit of respect to get this guy to stop bouncing around all over the place. And then I think Kyle could get off on his game plan. Lou, how do you feel about this fight, brother?
You guys covered all the good points on this. I don't think plus 300 is enough meat on the bone for me to get into just a straight submission. I do think he's a great parlay piece. But I did take the round 2 submission at plus 1100. I think Muradov, like you guys said, he's going to be dangerous for a few minutes. Kyle's going to have to mind his P's and Q's on the feet, but I do think he gets a takedown probably at worst, probably midway through the first round, wears him out. I think he needs to make a statement here. I think he needs a submission win because if he goes 3 fights in a row without a finish, I think a little bit of the bloom's going to come off the rose. A lot of people are very high on his talent, but they want to see more from him. Now, look, if you have a bet on Kyle money line and he's won the first 2 rounds, that third round's very exciting. You love that he's just laying there tying him up. That's the most excitement you can. You're like, yes, don't stand him up. Like I think didn't they stand him up in the 3rd round against Arman, and then he just right back down. It's like, yep, perfect. Like just keep him there. But I do think he needs to get a submission here, really start getting more favorable and more exciting matchups as he moves up the ranking. So round 2 submission. Hey man, my boy GM3 got him out of there round 2. Let's stick with what works. Round 2 submission plus 1100 for Kyle.
I like it, man. And I was just kind of looking through some of these specific round props. Definitely seems like there might be some meat on the bone. The other thing I would mention is this is the similar line to when he did win the fight by knockout. It was lined a similar price. And I think the one thing people might be underrating in this spot is the fact that Kyle Borralho can win this fight by knockout. Makhmud Muradov, the one thing I would say that was a little bit sketchy, about that GM3 fight is that he was getting diddy bopped on the feet. And you could say that that's because of the eye poke. You could say he hadn't recovered fully from the kick to the nuts. And that I think that's a fair argument. But
it's called the yam bag shot, by the way.
Yeah, the yam bags, exactly. But what I'm saying is like, I really was kind of stunned and surprised on rewatch. I thought it was mostly the grappling of GM3. It was very little of the grappling. It was the fact that he landed, 10 clean left hands in a row with a bunch of body kicks and a bunch of head strikes behind it. It's like he was just getting off on free volume attacks from that southpaw stance as he was starting to tire. And I think the damage added up quick. Then he got the takedown and it was an elementary finish. I think that Kyle Borralho could do the same thing with a club and sub, but like we've seen him win fights by knockout before. And, I just think that a guy of his physicality, his stature in a fight where they're going to be swinging and where we've seen he's landed on guys who are more sophisticated and better strikers on paper before, I don't think it's out of the realm of possibility that he lands a knockout blow here. on a guy who's starting to creep up there in age just a little bit in Makhmud Muradov. Really not a young prospect in the division. Time for him to get moving as things would go. Wiz, we'll kick it to you next, my man. How do you feel about this one?
Yeah, you guys highlighted a lot of good points. And yeah, I'm leaning more towards the knockout here, just based off of that GM3 fight. I don't rate GM3 too highly as a striker, but he was getting off like it was nothing. Like there was no defense at all. And with Caio, I think Caio is a really well-rounded fighter. Underrated striking and underrated power, in my opinion, to go along with the wrestling. When you have a guy that's really elite, I would say elite when it comes to the wrestling, you're gonna have the opponent with hands down with fear of the takedown. So that's gonna allow room for these empty strikes. And as he's piecing him up, I think he will get the club and sub. But to be honest, I don't put it out of the realm of possibility for Caio to just land that one flush punch that knocks him out cold. Going based off of how they look on the scale right now, Caio looks great. Muradov, if you compare the way he looked on the scales right now versus his Tapology picture, the man is off the juice. He's not as lean as he once was. I'm not sure if he fought at a lower weight class or not. I haven't dug that deep, but he doesn't look as fresh and as lean as he usually does, which is a key indication for me. So yeah, I like Caio here. I have him parlayed with Karol Rosa. I got that done pretty early, so I like the lines that I was able to get.
Brazil love.
Heck yeah. I mean, sometimes you just got to stop Brazilian hate. I've made that a betting strategy. It has been a profitable one thus far. So definitely not afraid to go back to the well with the stop Brazilian hate strategy. Lou, did you have thoughts that you wanted to throw out there on this fight?
I already have covered the Caio side, but I'm happy.
My man.
I'm happy that Tim is now adding a little bit to sub 2. Tim and I are similar thinkers. Like, well, you know what pays more than sub? Sub round 2 pays more than sub.
I love it. So we're all feeling a little bit bullish on the Caio side here. Just as a heads up, though, he does seem a little bit popular. So that's why I've kept my hands clean in the money line so far. I'm kind of waiting to see what the market dictates here. But overall, just lean towards the Caio side. Think his grappling is really legit and have been a fan of his so far in the UFC. Have done well shopping his props. So I don't want to risk it unless I really feel confident. I'm going to do a little bit more digging and see where I think the ultimate opportunity lies. But I do think he can win the fight by knockout. I think he can win the fight by sub. Don't love the plus 175 ITD. That, like, I'm normally looking 2-1 or better on an ITD price unless it's a blowout. So that's the one thing that's keeping me off this fight with passion. But I will probably get involved with Caio somehow before fight time. Guys, the next one is a absolute banger of a fight and probably one of the hardest fights to call on the card for me. You know, I gotta say, disclose my biases up front. My coach was trained actually by the same instructor as Sean Brady. And, you know, he was teaching classes in the old original Henzo Academy in the city. So just a lot of mutual respect. A lot of respect for their jiu-jitsu, especially. And Sean Brady's a hammer on top. You know, that's what he brings to the table. I really enjoy his game. You know, I model a lot of what I do in grappling after Sean Brady. Grit and guillotines the Irish way, baby. That's how we get after it. And it's a lot of top pressure. It's a lot of staying in people's face, making them wrestle, making them tired, making them exhausted, and then trying to lock up that choke. You know, he doesn't really bother himself with a lot of arm bars and foot locks and this and that. He's mostly trying to put you under a tremendous amount of duress physically, hold you in positions you don't want to be in, pin you to the floor, stick you there. And then when you start making desperate decisions to get out, that's when he looks for the finish. And he's normally looking to wrap up that choke because he's got incredible grip strength and he can squeeze the life out of people. So I think that that's the plus side to Sean Brady. That's everything I love about him. Irish as shit. So rooting for our guy to get the job done this weekend, but it's not going to be easy. You know, in terms of the narrative, the structure of the card, Bilal, remember the name Muhammad, in front of this audience, I do think that the UFC is trying to give Belal that opportunity. You know, it's not to say he's a freaking shoe-in to win. It's just to say they're really saying, hey, you got some momentum behind you. You got some wins in the division. You know, you've proven you go out there and say yes to a lot of these tough fights that guys don't want to take. He took on the Leon Edwards fight, took a bunch of fights that guys don't want to take. Vicente Luque, death dealer of the division. A lot of guys were saying, yeah, no, I'll do something else. Thanks. I'm busy that weekend. And Belal took the call. He got the win, avenged a loss from earlier in his career. So they're giving him this kind of building block, this spotlight. Do I think that it's a potential trap door? I do think it's a potential trap door. I think Sean Brady's grappling is insane. You know, I think when I watched him compete with Craig Jones, on the ground, Greg Jones, a wrestler, Craig Jones on the ground, granted, there was no leg locks there. People were saying like, oh, you know, that's a modified rule set, so it doesn't. All right, go show me another guy in the UFC who can go out there with a modified rule set and compete with Craig Jones on the ground. Most of them will get smoked, and most of them will get smoked fast. It doesn't matter what he was trying to do, armbar, back take. You know, it doesn't matter. He doesn't just need to leg lock people. Craig Jones would roast most people in the UFC in their grappling. Sean was able to stay on top of him, be extremely heavy, wear him out, stay on top, win the decision. Why couldn't he do that to Belal Muhammad? You know, it's like that is a question that has been ringing in my mind. Why can't he hold down somebody like Belal if he can hold down these guys? Belal, he's a proven MMA fighter. He's got a lot of experience. He's no dummy, right? You're not just going to go out there and use a very basic game plan and beat Belal. I think there's going to have to be some craft. There's going to have to be some thought put into this. But rewatching the Chiesa fight, I was able to see several examples of Sean walking him down with some strikes, then level changing behind a deceptive striking opportunity into a double leg, and he's not trying to finish. He runs you to the cage, and then he's got excellent strength. So he wraps that hips and he pulls it away from the cage, and it's a double leg. The single leg on Belal is just death. It just doesn't work. Belal's really good at it. He spent a lot of time working on it. You could tell he turns it inside, outside. Basically, you could tell that Belal's been picked up on a single a million times. So now he's finally learned what to do. He gets heavy on it. He grabs the arms. He pulls himself in close. He gets chest to chest. Like, he does a lot of things right. It's very difficult to get a hold of Belal. But the guys that did, like Damian Maia, they did it by switching off to a double, which is what Sean Brady does every time. And Sean Brady, man, he's extremely freak strong. So if he locks his hands on a double, he's going to pull Belal's hips away from the cage, and he's going to take him down, in my opinion. So then it becomes a real fight. Can he sit in there? Can he return him? Can he stay in there for the full 15 minutes with somebody who is an ornery prick like Belal? He's not just going to give it to you. You have to really beat the shit out of him. You have to break him. You have to hurt him, or you have to finish him. Like, Belal's just not going to quit on this fight. He's going to be in there for the whole 15 minutes. That's a tough guy. You know, that's a hard match to prepare for. But if there's one guy who could rise to that occasion, even on enemy soil, I like the guy Sean Brady, grit and guillotines, baby. I think he could submit him too. So give me Sean Brady, reluctantly, hesitantly. I like Sean Brady to get the job done in enemy territory. Gordo, how do you feel?
Well, I think I am the worst person to ask about this one because I'm a bit biased here. And before I go on and explain why, I'd like to say, if anybody has any doubts, just message me. I talked about CLV a bit. I'm always happy to share my bet slips, but I've had these bets in my account for months, and I saw the opening line on Sean Brady, and I saw he opened plus 190, and I went to bet it. I got plus 115. And that is still plus money on Sean Brady. I'm taking that. I'm happy to do so. But that was before I did my tape. But again, we're not here to talk about what the line was. We're here to talk about what the line is now. And we're looking at it now. I really think that it is a true, very, very close fight. Because if we look at this from a grappling perspective, from a strength perspective, I'm giving the size, strength, and wrestling probably to Sean Brady. I know that Belal Muhammad is a gritty guy who's able to go in there and get these takedowns and really do really well, but against who? He's been facing a lot of strikers and a lot of people who aren't really the same type of wrestler as Sean Brady is. So it's a really interesting dynamic there. So if it becomes a spot where we have a striking matchup, well, I do think Belal Muhammad might have a better chance there because I think he might have the quicker jab. I think he has the ability to get to the punch first. But does he have the power to really do anything other than skirt around the outside of 15 minutes? Does he eventually get entangled in a Sean Brady takedown? I don't know. I think that if we're looking from the spot now, it's really hard for me to trust Sean Brady at the price tag. I think that if the lines get closer, sure you can, but really it's whoever's the underdog here. It's dog or pass for me from a betting perspective. I do think that it ends up being honestly, I don't really want to say it. I think it ends up being not as exciting fight as everybody wants to. I really hoping it's a great fight. It's two guys that are decently fun to watch, decently good prospects. Let's say it that way. I don't think it's necessarily the best fight because you got two wrestlers and two guys who are more so wrestlers and grapplers, and then they go in and fight in the clinch and the exchange like that. I don't necessarily think that they get each other down with so much ease. So if it comes to striking exchange, might be a bit sloppier. So I'm going to pick Sean Brady to win. I think he's got the physicality edge and the strength edge here, but at the current line right now, not the most confident play of mine.
I think Bilal's edge is the footwork. So I really want to see if Brady can navigate this big cage. I feel like this is, a test and an opportunity for him. But if he's able to navigate the cage, cut off the cage, force Bilal backwards, I think the guy on the front foot is going to lead this fight pretty effectively, because it's really hard to just chase after somebody who's moving laterally and find takedowns. But if you're able to push somebody back and force them to come forward with a striking exchange and offer you their hips, makes it a lot easier to find the takedown. I feel like that's what Sean is going to be looking to do, and that's what he needs to do, in my opinion, to get this win. Lou, how do you feel about it?
Well, I mean, Bilal came out and shit on Philly, so obviously, I'm going to be on the Brady side here.
Throw down for your city. Come on.
I went back and forth on this one a lot.
Fuck yeah!
Right. Cheesesteaks are awesome. No, I ultimately settled on the Brady side. I was leaning Muhammad all week, and then I gave a second rewatch, and the Jake Matthews fight, kind of interesting. The Chiesa fight, I don't know. I didn't love Brady on the feet in that fight, but I do think this fight's just going to take place in the grappling realm more often than not. I think Brady's probably going to be a little bit stronger, but this is a tough. I don't have a bet on this yet. I just don't really. I'm hesitant to get involved in it and maybe just want to sit back and watch, but I have a bias toward Brady, obviously. I lean him getting it done by a really greasy decision. I think this is a good split decision fight. I don't know how much striking there's going to be. I don't know how much damage there's going to be. And in the case of that, I do like taking split decision because it becomes just a positional battle. Like, what do the judges want to see? So probably going to bet the split decision. I lean Brady for the sake of the show, and that's all I really got on this one.
Yeah, man, and I feel like the ultimate difference maker is you look at that Damian Maia fight, and what was missing from Damian Maia's approach? No damage. Zero. He literally is just trying to submit you. He's trying to get to a position. He's trying to get into this dominant spot. So if he doesn't get there with multiple minutes left in the round, he's basically shit out of luck, because then the guy just has to stall out and say, I'm going to be negative and do nothing and just wait for this time to expire. And there was a couple times Bilal got pinned to the cage, but he's like, there's 30 seconds left. I'm the only one that's throwing a strike. All right, try and take me down against the fence. Even if I get sat to my butt, no skin off my nose. He already won the round. I think that Sean's going to be throwing strikes, and I think if he gets on top, he's going to try and do the Khabib, sit on the legs and throw the short hooks and that kind of thing. Whereas Damian was just trying to consolidate position to attack a sub, and I think that's kind of the new MMA meta of grappling, is that you can't just grapple. You have to fight somebody. You have to throw strikes. You got to hit them, even if you're on top, because it opens up the rest of your game. So I think that would be an integral part of a win for Sean Brady. Wiz, do you agree with my assessment, and how do you feel about this fight overall?
I mean, the truth of it all is both these fighters really haven't been tested with really good grapplers or wrestlers. I mean, the Chiesa fight, sure, I'll give it to him. I am scared of what happens if this fight stays on the feet for Brady, because in that third round against Chiesa, he just looked god-awful and he looked gassed. Now, he got the surgery on his nose, says that the cardio is better than ever. So we're yet to see it. So I'm not going to really take all that into factor here. When it comes to striking, I favor Bilal. When it comes to the wrestling, I think it's 50-50 down the middle. Who has the power? Probably Brady. The guy's a specimen. He's freaking jacked. But the smarter fighter here is Bilal. He's been in the cage with the more experienced fighters, in my opinion. And every time I watch a Bilal fight, I've usually been on the opposite side of him. So I've done really bad against him. When I bet on him, I'm usually all right. But Bilal employs a game plan for every single fighter, and he follows it. That's the one thing I really like about him. He's a fighter that you like to bet on because he's really smart with his approach, and he sticks to it every single time. So for me, I had to take the dog side here. It was a dog or pass situation for me. I got him at plus 125 for a unit and a half. I didn't want to get cute with the decision, although people are like, oh, Bilal doesn't win anything but decisions. I don't need to get cute with it. I'll take the plus 125 and I'll be on my way. And another piece, like if this fight is projected to go to decision, this fight, let's remember this is in Abu Dhabi. With just playing narratives here, with a guy who is from that parts of the world, last name Muhammad, who are the judges going to favor in most case? So that's just what I'm thinking. That's what I bet on myself. And yeah, I think Bilal can get this one done because he's faced the better brand of competition as well.
Fair enough. And I mean, yeah, he literally fought the champion of the weight class, so definitely going to take the edge there in terms of quality of competition to the Bilal Muhammad side. He's been around for a long time too. You know, most of his losses, very, very quality. You know, Jeff Neal, still a ranked contender in the top of the division. Leon Edwards, I feel like he was trending towards a loss there, with all due respect. And again, champion of the division. So mostly very credible losses for Bilal Muhammad. He's got another big opportunity, but it's against an undefeated prospect. So hell of a fight. Great matchmaking by the UFC. Another reason why this card is just so stacked. And I'm looking right now for the best available price, and it's showing minus 138 right now on Pinnacle Sportsbook. Best available price on Sean Brady. The comeback on Bilal Muhammad can be had for as high as plus 120 on Caesars Sportsbook. So that being said, guys, next fight up on the card, we'll kick off the main card. And this is a fascinating women's fight. I don't say that every time, but I'll say it this time. And the reason being is because we might have a new contender emerge from this fight. We really have Katlyn Chookagian kind of defending her territory in the division. And that's a familiar spot for her. She's had to do this a number of times. To be honest with you, I bet a lot of money on Amanda Ribas because I was pretty sure that they were looking to set her up to get her quickly involved in a Valentina Shevchenko title fight. They're like thin division. We could send her right to the top. Katlyn's a winnable fight for her. And I thought that everything lined up, right? She goes out there. She gets to the top positions. She did not use as much intentional ground and pound as I would have liked to see, right? She got really content looking for positions, looking to submit. She got too grappling oriented, didn't have that striking intensity that you wanted to see, allowed Katlyn Chookagian to explode back to her feet and win her way back into the round by throwing some strikes. Frankly, still a little aggrieved by the decision. Spent a lot of time flat on her back in completely dominant positions, the scarf hold, things you don't even normally see in MMA, and no reward for that. So when you're a grappler in MMA, you really got to know, like, if I'm not doing damage, if I don't have their arm twisted behind their back, they're giving me no credit for what I'm doing. So that was an unfortunate beat there. Lost a couple split decisions in a row with big bets. So that's definitely a danger in this game, right? And if you bet on Katlyn Chookagian fights for or against, you've probably been bit or blessed by a split decision that you did or did not deserve, right? That's kind of the story of Katlyn Chookagian's career. All decisions for the most part, but most every fight she's been in has been competitive in the UFC, with the exception of the Valentina Shevchenko fight. She was badly outskilled and out physicaled in that spot. Not the greatest at taking damage, I would say, would be the one flaw for Katlyn Chookagian. Does absorb some damage against bigger punchers that can get inside of range like a Jessica Andrade. So those are the kind of fights where I look to fade her aggressively. This fight, I feel like both women want to compete at the same distance. So for me, that makes it a little bit interesting where I think to myself, could Katlyn Chookagian find a way into this fight? Manon Fiorot, very impressive physically, big stature, strong woman, obviously skilled on the feet, but I've tried to fade her twice in the UFC, never for more than half a unit at a time, but just she's shown me these vulnerabilities. Number one, she hasn't really been tested in the grappling in quite some time, and I think that this is an opportunity for somebody to test her in the grappling potentially, and let me explain why. looking into Caitlin Chookagian's social media in the lead up to this fight, she's training with Gregor Gillespie. She's training with her husband, who's a D1 All-American wrestler, Kyle Sermina. And she's training with a bunch of Long Island studs that are very qualified. The New York boys can teach you how to wrestle. And I'm telling you right now, I would not be surprised at all if Caitlin Chookagian shot takedowns in this fight, if she went out there looking to get on top of Manon Fiorot. And I do think that Manon Fiorot, not only is she very strong, she's a big woman. So she's able to use leverage. She's able to throw people over her hips, right? That's going to be a lot harder to do against somebody like Caitlin, who's matching her in those categories, who's as long, who's as lanky. And I think that those are the kind of things that could lead to awkward back takes, weird transitions, triangle choke. I don't think that it's outside the realm of possibility that Caitlin Chookagian gets her first finish inside the UFC with a submission in this fight. I don't think that that's the most likely scenario, but I just think the idea that somebody is like, you know, a lock to not get submitted against a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt from the Renzo Gracie Academy, who's training with elite level wrestlers from America, and has been at the top of the division for, you know, X amount of years, it's just a foregone conclusion she's going to lose this fight. I don't buy that. You know, especially upon further investigation here, I just don't buy it. She's a little bit older herself. You know, she's not the world's youngest prospect. These women are close to the same age. And I think that based on the fact that she's been competitive in every decision she's ever been in her career, basically, and she also is due. She's fucking due. If anybody in the UFC is due, it's Caitlin Chookagian, man. She's due. She's been at her craft for so long. She's been plying it, and this is the kind of fight that can make or break her career. Remember who called for this fight? It was not Manon Fiorot. It was Caitlin Chookagian. She said that French chick can get it too. I'm hoping that she serves it up this weekend. Might have to take a flyer on the 25-1 Caitlin Chookagian by sub. Renzo Grace, New York in the building, baby. Y'all don't want to wrestle. Gordo, what do you think, brother?
Aucune chance. Je veux dire ça maintenant. Il a aucune chance that the French lady loses. I think it's Manon Fiorot season. There's one way to find out, really. Does WizBet still have his Chook train background? I don't think so. I don't see it. So that's really tells me everything I got to know. No, I can go in here. I can dig through this whole breakdown in French to show you a little bit of bias. But really, what I will say is I do think Manon Fiorot is the better fighter in a lot of spots here. I think she has the better striking, the better power, the better ability to get takedowns. That submission line is interesting. I don't necessarily see it. I know that Fiorot has the confidence to go down there and grapple with Maya, grapple with MBS. I think she has the ability to stay safe. Either way, it's a spot where you have a girl who has a lot of the advantages here, and I do think that she is able to get it done over Chookagian. Of course, with that being said, Chookagian's a lock to bet on a decision every time just because she wins those greasy decisions. I think that's a way you can always profit, is hedge out the decision. But either way, I'm on the Fiorot side. I did a huge breakdown on this one, a couple pages at least for the elbow bets. Pretty much just saying I'm on the Fiorot side due to physicality, due to size, due to range, due to length, due to technicality on the feet, due to power, all the above. I really like Fiorot this week, and a little bit of French bias, but either way, I do think she gets it done.
No lie, I'm looking right now, and Chookagian by knockout has been taking action and coming down in some spots across the market. Extremely interesting line movement there. Lou, I know you're the king of some long shot props, my brother. Are you nuking Caitlin Chookagian knockout props, or what's going on?
Kind of interesting. So look, I'm gonna guess that Wiz is gonna take Fiorot. So I'm gonna deadlock the panel right now and go with you, Liam, and take the pride of Quakertown, Pennsylvania, Caitlin Chookagian. If you've ever been to Quakertown, Pennsylvania, let me just tell you, the girls that live there don't fuck with these women. Like, these are badasses. So look, I'm just going to keep this one simple. How many times have we seen a Chookagian fight and you think she's going to lose because her opponent can do X, Y, and Z, because they can take her down, because they're going to be stronger, they're going to be the better striker. And then you get to the middle of the second round, you're like, I think Chookagian's winning this fight because I think she's either landing or the judges think she's landing these high shots and it's working. And I mean, look, Chookagian has more experience, especially in the bigger cage. She has more experience using her, and I think that matters here because it's going to be an at-range fight. I know you're talking about the grappling potential and this and that, but honestly, I think this fight just stays standing 80% of the time. It seems like it's Fiorot's MO. I know it's Chookagian's MO for the bulk of her career. So if it stays standing and Chookagian just kind of can piece her up and really not take damage, it's going to get real dicey. And I mean, I don't know if I'm going to do a finish prop, but if you're going to take Chookagian decision, you always back that up with Chookagian split decision. So I'm probably going to deadlock the panel because I think Wiz is going the other way, but got to stick with my homegirl Chookagian here, man. She's been good to me gambling wise, like last couple of years. She's been real good to me.
Missed weight, says Moyes. Who missed weight, brother? Let us know, please. I can give a couple updates in the interim. Both the challenger and the former champion, Charles Oliveira, have made weight for their upcoming bout. So, oh, shit. I think that he's saying that
Chook missed weight, 127 by 1.5 pounds.
Man, what is that, the first time in her career?
I like it even more now.
All right, Chook by sub. She's shipping it for the boys.
Yes.
That does not make me feel good, boys. Well, that was a completely derailing, and distracting.
There's two weird things
situation
during the breakdowns that have happened. Like, got a fight canceled during the breakdown, and we got a weight miss during the breakdown of that exact fight. That's crazy.
Man, let's not have that happen again. Wiz, what do you got here in light of this new information?
As Gordo noticed, the Chook train is off my Twitter header. I have been the longest, and I mean the longest, Chook rider forever. And I think this is the spot where I have to hop off. In my breakdown of these upcoming fighters, I have a list of up-and-coming fighters that start in the UFC that are good prospects. And the thing I wrote about Fiorot is, or I'm going to try and pronounce it like Gordo, Fiorot. I hope I nailed that. I wrote, Fiorot looks like Chookagian 3.0. She can grapple, she's stronger, and she has power in her punches. Her kicking game is actually pretty good as well. The one strike that I feel like is going to be key for her in this fight is going to be that side kick to the body, just for distance management, as she is the fighter that's given up about 1.5 to 2 inches of reach. I just believe that Fiorot is going to be able to strike with Chookagian at will, and if she wants to, she's going to be able to take her down. Chookagian didn't really impress me at all in that fight against Rebus. And she was fighting. I mean, Rebus is a smaller girl moving up a weight class, and she's going to be a little bit stronger than where she was at 115. But getting taken down like that is not a good look, and being controlled the way she's being controlled, although she was able to manage to get up a couple times. Nevertheless, it's just not a good look. And Rebus was able to land on her pretty often. I don't really rate the striking defense of Katlyn Chookagian, and also the offense. She seems to punch air a lot, especially when it comes to the higher level of competition. So I have to go with Fiorot here. I did parlay her with a fighter that's coming up. So yeah, I'm all aboard on the French train. Choo choo. But no K at the end.
Katlyn Chookagian. All-American Wrestling season is incoming. People's heads will turn when they see Gregor Gillespie's gift to Katlyn Chookagian, which is a double leg takedown. Now, guys, we can move on to the next fight on the card here. It's a very good one. The last thing that we will mention on the way out here is just those best available odds that you can get. Katlyn Chookagian, plus 190 on the money line comeback at BetMGM, minus 205 for Manon Fiorot at DraftKings Sportsbook. So get it while the going's good. I think that if you want to get involved, those are playable money lines on both sides. Now, next up, guys, we got Beneil Dariush, friend of the panel. Our man Wiz Bets, be at the gym with our guy Benny. And Benny is a hell of a fighter, man. Absolute warrior. Been in a lot of great fights in the UFC. I've been, really enjoying rewatching some of these absolute bangers that he's put on. But one of the things that stands out is, man, this guy's been in a lot of bangers. This guy's been in a lot of wars, a lot of heavy duty fights. And he's still a pretty young man, but he looks like a guy who's been in a lot of cage fights. You could either become a president of the U.S. or you could be a cage fighter for 10 years. It'll age you just the same. And my man Benny, he's got that gray hair, just don't care. Because he comes out there and can swing with anybody. He's not afraid to get in a fight. He's not afraid to throw down with somebody. He's a hell of a tough guy to put away. But I do think that chin is vulnerable, man. And that's the problem that I've had with Benny in some recent bouts, is just trusting that chin. Drakkar Klose had him doing, the high step, and then he just found his footing, nuked Drakkar, and the fight was over shortly thereafter. But I feel like, that could have played out differently, and we'd be having a much different conversation. He'd be in a much different place on the card. Mateusz Gamrot, you could say the same thing about him. Gets the benefit of the doubt in a very close decision last time out. Probably should have went the other way for Arman Tsarukyan. But again, to be having close decisions, with Arman Tsarukyan, that's the kind of ilk of Islam Makhachev. That's the kind of ilk of very talented fighters. So I think that, there's no skin off his nose for that result. Gamrot is an exceptional talent in this lightweight division. I don't think he fights like anybody else. I don't think he's very easy to game plan for. He's got awkward shots. He mixes up his timing, and a lot of what he's doing is blitzing inside. If you think that he's going to come upstairs and you put your hands up to guard it, he's going to drop down for that low single leg. If you drop your weight down for that low single, he's going to come with a knee to the body, or he's going to try and swing hooks to take your head off. And I do think that people are kind of discrediting his finishing ability. Arman Tsarukyan has shown us nothing but extreme durability in his recent performances. He's been able to take big shots. Most of the time, he's the absolute hammer in his fights, just dishing it out on people. So Arman has shown a lot of really good things. He was able to compete with him at an extremely high level in the striking and the grappling, especially down the stretch. That was a fight where he had 5 rounds to work. I think that Gamrot, one of the things he does well, he spends himself in every fight, man. He goes out there and pushes as much as he has to give. And I think that, I bet him bigly against Carlos Diego Ferreira, and he was breaking him with his pace. He was breaking him with his pressure. He was breaking him with damage. He was hurting him with big shots, and he was nasty, man. He really fucked up his ribs badly. And what I saw as well was the fact that he was about to submit him. He was about to submit like a, second-degree black belt or whatever the hell Carlos Diego is, extremely credentialed competitor. He was hurt. He was compromised, and he was about to get submitted by somebody who is inferior as a grappler on paper. And Gamrot has that ability against a lot of guys, because he's not just bringing his, jiu-jitsu technical ability. It's a pace, it's a pressure, and it's a relentlessness. There's a style of passing in jiu-jitsu that's popular now, buzzsaw passing. That's what he brings to the table. He's a buzzsaw. He's looking to run you over. He's looking to really bring an insane amount of pressure that people can't deal with. And that's the one thing I think is scary for Beneil here. Beneil could be in some danger if he's not able to pace himself, if he's not able to slow this guy down and make it a more measured pace. I think in a measured fight, Beneil, maybe skill for skill, is a little bit better in all positions. But when that clock is going 1,000,000 miles per hour, and when he starts to feel that fatigue, like we've seen in the Evan Dunham fight, like we've seen in even that Drakkar Klose fight, which, by the way, was in the second round. So he looked like he was, spent. Like he had basically 4 more punches to throw, and if Drakkar didn't go down along the fence line, he's probably getting a couple back. So that's the problem for me here with my guy that I love, Beneil Dariush. I just think he might not have the motor to go with somebody like Gamrot for these intense 15 minutes. So I think that Gamrot by KO is live, and I think that Gamrot's probably going to win the fight, but it's a hell of a scrap. It's another reason why this card is so damn stacked. So we'll kick it to my man Wiz first here, because he's got that personal connection, and all respect to the ledge, Beneil Dariush.
Yeah, much respect to Dariush. Really tough fight here against Gamrot, who is really well-rounded. He can put it together in the striking. He can put it together in the wrestling. Great scrambler, great grappler in his own right. This is a fight where I feel like Gamrot might be able to just have his way with Dariush in the striking. It's tough for me to say that, just because obviously I train at that gym, and for me, what's discouraging is the 2 leg injuries. It's the knee and the ankle, both on the same leg. We don't know how he's going to show up after this layoff, after these surgeries. If he's going to be as quick with the footwork, how's the wrestling going to look like on that knee? So there's a lot of question marks on Dariush here. And I just think Gamrot has a style that can pose a lot of threats, especially with the scramble ability that he has. If he does get taken down, he's going to be able to pop up. And how many times is Dariush going to be able to take him down without really feeling the consequences of that knee surgery? Because a lot of the times we see these fighters go through surgeries and they don't really return 100%. And especially when it's 2 injuries on the same leg, it makes it that much more difficult. Power edge, I do lean Dariush here in the striking. Don't get me wrong. But overall striking, Gamrot has this weird angle striking that he does that you don't really face and you don't really see all that often in the UFC. He creates these weird angles that he's just able to land at will against his opponents. And we didn't get to see much of that against Tsarukyan because it was just it was a grapple fest for the most part. And when he was on the feet, he was winning these striking exchanges, in my opinion, for the most part. I'm not going to say every single one of them. I think Dariush has better kicks, but it's just going to be tough on the injured leg. So I'm very interested to see what happens here. It's a fight that I am really excited for. It's the second best fight on the card for me. I do have a bet on Gamrot myself. I parlayed him with with Fiorot.
Heck yeah, man. Fair enough. I like the breakdown. Lou, what do you got here?
All right. I just want to say the line is, to me, it's, before I give the pick, I think it's wide. I think it's a little disrespectful to Dariush. I think that he's kind of earned not being such a big dog here, but I understand it with the layoff. I get it. So that being said, I'm on the Gamrot side. I should mention, just to add what Wiz says, his takedown defense is 90%, and it's not a small sample size. I mean, that's incredibly impressive. I don't know that Dariush could take him down. Meanwhile, Gamrot, that little slick, like, grab the back of the leg and get you down in like half a second move that he has, it seems like indefensible. Like, I love it, and I think it'll work here. If this thing stays on the feet, I agree that I think Gamrot's pace is kind of a bad matchup for Dariush. I would say that he's got a minus P's and Q's getting caught, because Dariush has some kind of underrated power. And if he hits him a counter shot, I know we've never seen Gamrot knocked out, but Dariush definitely has the skill set and the power to do it. But I really think Gamrot not only is going to have his way with the pace and on the feet, and will mix in the takedowns. I think Gamrot gets a finish here, and his finish price is a really nice, I believe it was, I want to say plus 250 the last time I looked at it, but I could be wrong. I have it at plus 225, which I still like. I think this is going to be Gamrot's statement fight. And I love Dariush. I love watching him fight. And I do think this line is a little wide, but I just can't shake the feeling that this may be one-way traffic. So give me Gamrot, and give me Gamrot to get it done in the distance. No method. Just going to take him in the distance.
Go ahead, Wiz.
Just my bad. I just wanted to correct myself. It wasn't a surgery done on Dariush's leg. I got him mixed up with TJ for a second, but yeah, just the leg injuries is what I was referring to. Thank you for correcting me, Narco.
All right. That's why I always say sharpest chat in the game. The other thing I was going to say real quick as I kick it to my man Gordo was that a lot of these fighters have some of my favorite interactions. Me and Hakeem chasing Tuhugov, one of my favorite memories from the UFC. And then talking about Mateusz Gamrot, when I had that big bet on him and he gets the big win and he just starts looking at the camera, flexing as hard as he can and going, Gamrot, Gamrot, Gamrot. I love that guy. I'll always love him. That's awesome. I don't care what anybody says. The guy is cool as shit, and he looks just like the most casual guy who'd be doing IT at Best Buy, and then all of a sudden he punches you in the face and knocks you cold. That's a cool guy to me. Gordo, what do you think about this one?
Cool guy for sure. And you know what? I'll come right straight off the bat saying I bet Dariush huge against Ferguson, and I bet against Gamrot. Last time I did bet Tsarukyan, but you know what? You look back and maybe that's me learning my lesson, because now I am on the Gamrot side of things. And we look at his record and it says 21-1. He could very easily be 20-2, but he could also very easily be 22-0. And we always forget about this first UFC fight, how close that one was as well, and how debatable that was. But we look at the guy, and he just does a lot of things very, very well. Very impressive fighter, very good technically. He's got great power, great striking. He's got a very good takedown defense, as Lou alluded to. He also threw in that grappling defense and offense. I think he showed a great way to be versatile throughout the fight. And I think that even though in this 3-round fight, he's going to be able to push a pace that he wasn't, not that he didn't push in that 5-rounder, but he's able to go balls to the wall in this 3-rounder here against Dariush. And despite me loving Dariush, I just don't think it's the best stylistic matchup for him. Shout out to Wiz being able to bet against a guy you train with and like. Good for you. I am with you here. I do think Gamrot is able to get this done. I think he's got multiple edges here in the spot. And as much as I do like Dariush, I think it's the new age here. I do think it's Gamrot.
I like it. So unfortunately, we're all riding against the great and powerful Beneil Dariush. So gotta say, there's some bets that you really hate to lose. You're like, oh, I hate that guy, and he took my money. But this one, it's like, if you got to make a donation to somebody's cause, let it be Beneil Dariush. The guy's an absolute, pleasure to hear from, to see, to watch fight. He always puts it on the line. So just want to give him that credit and respect, even if we don't think he's going to get the job done this weekend. So our friends at OddsJam listing the best available price, -190 on Mateusz Gamrot, Gamer, against Beneil Dariush, Benny, +170. Best comeback on Caesars Sportsbook. Check it out if you're looking to get involved with the action. And guys, now we're on to the big 3. The 3 fights that I've really been waiting to discuss with these guys. And honestly, the 3 fights that I'm going to spend more time after we get off the air breaking down in further depth, because I think they deserve it, man. When they give us slop, sometimes I pass over it. I don't want to dig in any further. I don't want to get my hands dirty. But when they give us good stuff, when they give us really interesting matchups to break down, makes it a lot more worthwhile to do the homework, to dig in, and to try and really understand these matchups. So starting with this featured bout of the evening at 135 pounds, one of the best weight classes going in the UFC, we've got the former champion and #1 contender, Petr Yan, taking on Sean O'Malley, taking his first really big step up in competition. Obviously, now we see Chito Vera has made that steady climb up the ranks in the division. But at the time that they fought, he was not, a top 10 guy necessarily, certainly not a top 5 guy like he's on the precipice of being right now in the division. So I think that, that was a pump the brakes kind of performance, right? Not only did he have the struggles with the leg, recurring theme, but also he got finished with an elbow in that fight, and people just sweep that under the rug like it never happened. But he looked like he was scrambled. As soon as he came to, he's grabbing the leg. He's, was content to lose that fight basically. And, he's got the fan base. He's got the power of the microphone, the pulpit, the media. So he can go out there and give a little bit of that talk, that narrative, the Sugar State Athletic Commission and all these things. But I can't ignore that on the tape where he has been hurt. He has been hit. He hasn't responded that well when he was in dangerous situations and facing a lot of adversity. Credit to him for the Sukmatov fight, sticking it out when things were going sideways there. But, frankly, if Sukmatov had a better game plan, he probably would have called him up to his feet, had a little bit of a better chance of exploiting him in those spots. So for me, this is a really compelling fight on paper. The odds have been going all over the place on this fight. So we look at the opening odds, -250 or so. Looking at Bet Online, they opened a -250, now back to a -260 tag after initially getting slammed on the Petr Yan side. So it basically opened up, went all one way, trickle back, and now it's kind of right back to where they started at, interestingly enough. So this is a great fight, very compelling on paper, because you've got one guy who, it would be a big deal if he loses. He's going from that undefeated record, but a really impressive run of fights in the UFC to putting it all on the line against somebody very dangerous, but a winnable matchup. He does have some advantages here. He's going to have the length. He's going to have the reach. He might have a slight speed advantage with the hands. But all that is to say, he's got to go through some fire in this fight, in my opinion. I don't think you're going to one-punch Petr Yan. So I think he's going to have to deal with some adversity. He's going to get hit to the body hard with punches and kicks. I think he's going to get hit to the head on a number of occasions here. I don't think this is the same level of guys that we're swinging and missing with every attempt. I think Petr Yan's going to line him up and find some good counters. So I could see Petr Yan winning this fight by knockout. That is something I've been considering this week. Haven't gotten there yet. I could also see O'Malley winning the fight by decision. That got absolutely nuked when they opened it at plus 800 on FanDuel. People crushed that line. I do think that there's a chance that he could just outland him, keep his distance, be really effective. Momentum's a little bit of a harder thing to crush in the big octagon. If he gets the momentum, the head of steam, maybe he's able to take that beating, that resistance in round 3 and grit out a decision here. But overall, I just have to favor Petr Yan to get this done. I think probably at a little bit of a higher line than he's being priced right now. But personally, staying away from this fight for now and waiting to decide if I'm ultimately going to spring for that violence bet, just because I do think that we haven't seen great reactions to heavy strikes from O'Malley in the past. I think this is going to be the biggest hitter that he's dealt with so far in the UFC. Gordo, what do you think?
Yeah, really, really good final 3 matchups. And as a fan, I kind of just want to sit back and enjoy. But let's break this one down quickly. It is 2 a.m., so I'll let you guys really take over these breakdowns here. For me, really, it's so much of a narrative. It's like, why this matchup? Of course, you got 2 very big marketable names, but you have to think that Yan, a guy who could potentially be holding the belt, versus a guy in O'Malley who they've been protecting for so long. It feels like just a really weird matchup, but one that looks amazing on paper. I think that if this was a 5-round fight, it would be a much different story. With that being said, I still think that Petr Yan wins this fight. However, you can't think it's too out of the picture to see Sean O'Malley stealing around, especially early on when Yan is downloading that data and all that stuff. So I do think that O'Malley has a lot of these measurables, the length, the distance, the striking accuracy, the technicality. Like, there's no doubt about it, he's a good striker, and we're probably going to see a 15-round striking match. So how inconceivable is it to see Sean O'Malley winning a split decision here? I mean, it's not that inconceivable. Is it probable? No, I'm just saying it's a potential outcome, that's for sure. The pick is going to be Petr Yan by decision. I do think it goes all 15. However, I think it's dicier than people want it to be. I think that although Sean is nowhere near he hasn't really fought any of this top level competition, that he definitely has some top level striking, and we're really going to see a good technical affair on Saturday morning.
I like it, man. And I can't talk you out of it. Lou, what do you got, brother?
All due respect to Gordo, I'm going to completely disagree with every single thing he just said.
I like dissension. We got dissension now at 2 a.m. Let's go.
Aside from the last fight with Sterling and the Sandhagen fight, Petr Yan's attempted a takedown in 6 straight fights. This being a 3-round fight, and knowing that O'Malley does have some decent technical striking, I wouldn't be surprised if Yan took him down in the first round. And I wouldn't be surprised if he just used that strategy the whole fight and just avoided even getting into the optics of a striking match with a guy who everything that O'Malley's going to throw, he's going to pose. The optics of O'Malley always look good. I think Yan could take him down. If you have Bet365, which I know you do, Gordo, Paul Shaughnessy brought up a very interesting way they have this fight listed. Round 1 sub for Yan is listed at 100 to 1. Round 2 subs listed at 100 to 1, and round 3 subs listed as 100 to 1. So you're getting about 33 to 1 just to blast all those. Most books it's hanging at plus 1,200. I took the shot on Yan by submission. I don't really know what we're going to get out of O'Malley's get-up game, and I also think he's the kind of guy that's prone to getting frustrated when fights aren't going his way. And if Yan just completely frustrates him by throwing him on the ground, I don't know what we're going to get from O'Malley. I should mention, it's taken us this long into the night. But you know what time it is, boys. Not the Yan bag special, but this is the Yan bag special. And the reason is, and this is a very technical analysis, if you guys ever have a friend, and I've talked to a couple of you guys about this, you have a friend out of your group where everything's the fucking thing. Like, you can't just go out and get a drink. You can't go out and get a meal. It's like, oh, well, I got dry cleaning to drop off. So, like, can we do that on the way? Or like, dude, just why can't it be a straightforward night? Why can't everything just not be a goddamn fucking thing and a straightforward night? Sean O'Malley is the guy where everything's a goddamn thing. The Sukumentov fight, weird shit's going on. The Vera fight, kind of a fluky, not fluky, but an interesting injury in the first. The Munoz fight, a disaster. O'Malley's just a weird, like, there's something weird in his, like, aura. I know this is a stupid way to say it, but I just think controversy follows the guy. Could I see him losing by DQ and then the Sugar State Athletic Commission declares him completely still undefeated? Yes, that's a very real possibility here. So I like Jan's submission as my like nice prop, but I really do think this is the fight where the Yan bags happen. So Yan is a good parlay piece as well, but I think there's going to be more grappling than Gordo alluded to. I do think it would be wise of Yan to do it. I think he will have a big advantage if he chooses to do it. And again, being a 3-round fight, this whole narrative that like Yan always loses the first round, I'm sure he's hearing it. So why not win the first round by just immediately taking him to the ground where he should have a pronounced advantage?
Gordo, seemed like you had a little response. Go ahead, brother.
No, not necessarily. I am taking a step back on this one. It's an if fight, right? This could look so much differently if Yan decides to go out there and wrestle. And of course, it's definitely always an option. But I think in the grand scheme of things, Yan is a world-class striker. And I know he thinks he's good at it. I know he's good at it. And after coming off of a fight where he was largely controlled the mat, wouldn't be surprised if he wants to go out there and showcase some striking for 15 minutes, right? So I'm not really taking a side strongly either side. I'm happy to hear your thoughts on this one, but I'm just saying I wouldn't be surprised if it was a greasy striking affair.
I hear where you're coming from. Wiz, what do you think?
Yeah, so in this fight, I do think that Yan looks for the wrestling early and often. Now, if it does end up staying on the feet for all 3 rounds, a greasy split decision might be coming our way. I'm not saying that Petr Yan can't close the distance effectively, but let's just say how it is. Sean O'Malley is a really good striker, and if it wasn't for his reach, he probably wouldn't be getting as far as he is right now. And I think that reach might pose some problems to Yan, but I'm not really gonna bank on that. I do think Yan smashes him here pretty dominantly, takes him down from round 1 and finds a finish on the floor via ground and pound, probably in the 2nd round. I'm not betting on this fight myself, pure entertainment purpose for me. I don't want to have any money tied at all.
Yeah, I do think that that's one of the most underrated parts of Petr Yan's game is his ground and pound. It's this thing that stands out to me to this day about the Aldo fight. It was basically tit for tat on the feet, and Aldo's a legend, so really nothing wrong with that. He was going back and forth, having a lot of productive exchanges, but he took a couple body shots. He took a couple clean returns with that right hand from Jose Aldo, and he said, enough of this. I'm going to sit him to his ass. And what's really impressive is how many other guys have you recalled sitting Jose Aldo to his ass? Not many. And then he was able to stay on top and dominate him from on top, nearly finish, then beat the ever-loving shit out of him and completely gas him and finish him. So I think that is a fight that speaks really well to what Yan is capable of at his best. In this fight, I don't want to discredit Sean O'Malley's grappling. I know for sure he's competed in some, grappling tournaments, and he's tried to improve his skills. He's brought in very high-level guys to work with in his gym. He trains with good guys in Arizona. I don't think he's going to be, just a complete punk on the ground, but I think the combination of Yan being a no-mercy fighter, right? He gets on top, he throws ground and pound, and he's a ornery prick, and the fact that he's looking for any way to finish you if he's in those positions. I don't think he would reject a sub if O'Malley gave his back or something, but I don't think O'Malley's just an easy mark on the ground to get submitted. I think more likely it would actually be a TKO, whether it's on the feet or on the ground, just because of who Yan is. He likes to hurt people. He's trying to hit you and beat the shit out of you and make you feel sorry for saying anything bad about him. Like, he is a bad dude out there, and that's what I think he brings to the table is his meanness, his intensity. And I think that Sean O'Malley sometimes has gotten away with being a little aloof, and he's playing games and he's dribbling and he's doing shit. I don't think he's doing any of that shit out here. I think he's going to be a lot more nervous for this fight. And I just think that, if he's able to respond to that challenge, God bless him for it. I mean, that's what dreams are made of. But I do think this is a huge ask going, far away, taking on a guy who's really credentialed, who's motivated for this spot and this opportunity, who's still very young in his own right and extremely dangerous. I give him some credit for taking the fight. I think we're going to learn more about him here, but I can't believe in it until I see it with somebody like this. And I do think that projecting out talent is part of what we're doing here. We're trying to game that out, but I think that O'Malley is talented, but very raw. And I think he's really going to get exposed for some of those deficiencies by somebody like Petr Yan in the transitions, in the in-between phases of MMA, where I think Yan could exploit him. And he's done that to very good grapplers, very good wrestlers in the past. So that's what I'm looking forward to seeing here, and seeing if Petr Yan can find that form that made him one of the top pound-for-pound fighters in the world. He's coming off a couple defeats here, one by disqualification, one by narrow decision. So I don't think there's any reason to write him off here. And I understand why people were coming in on him heavy when this line opened. I understand why people, were tempted by Sean O'Malley over 3-1. But at this stage, I do think that, it's probably a favorite or pass situation based on my opinion of the fight. And shout out to our man Narco in the chat, says he played O'Malley decision small. That makes sense to me. That seems where a lot of the sharp action went to on the O'Malley side. And guys, next up, we've got a title fight in the very same division. So we can see the winner of one match square off with the other here. We've got Aljamain Funkmaster Sterling, one of the very few UFC champions that I've met. Nice guy, very cordial in person, and also very humble guy. Was willing to take some time and just speak with the people there to watch the fights. And also you could tell just by being around him, the guy's an absolute martial arts fanatic. He couldn't take his eyes off the screen. He was watching every second of every fight, breaking it all down, poking Chris Weidman on the arm. Hey, look at what this is going on. I feel like he is a student of the sport. And I do think that this is a challenge that TJ Dillashaw has not faced before. I can't find on the resume of TJ Dillashaw, on the record of TJ Dillashaw, a grappler who's this committed to looking for these positions and who's this dangerous when he gets them. So, people are talking about Dominic Cruz and what Dominic Cruz was able to achieve. Guys, go through the whole career of Dominic Cruz. He took down Demetrius Johnson. He took down this guy. He took down that guy. He's never held anybody down, right? That's not what he does. He really goes out there and sits people down to interrupt their timing and to win rounds. And then he gets back up and he lands a couple punches. And then you don't know when he level changes if he's going to punch you in the face or if he's going to try and shoot for a takedown, right? I think that, Aljamain Sterling, what he's done really well in recent performances is that he's thrown a lot of volume. He's kept people away from him. He's kept their offense at bay. It's hard to throw strikes when you're under constant fire. And then when you're not under fire, when you try and fire back, he shoots a takedown. He basically does a more sophisticated version of the Derek Brunson. I always talk about DB. I love betting on the guy because when you start striking with him, he wrestles you. And when you start wrestling back, he punches you in the head. And that's a really good way to get people off their game. I think that is exactly what we could see from Aljamain Sterling in the early going here. He is a backpack. He will climb up on people. He will take their back and finish them. Here's what I don't like. Number one, the media circus that's been going on around Aljo in the lead up to this fight. Number one, he's talking all about, TJ's tested positive for this and that and whatever. Okay. Then he's meeting up with Petr Yan every 2 seconds. They look like best friends and buddies and shaking hands and laughing and joking together. Didn't like to see that either. It's like, yo, this guy still wants your title in your division. What are we doing here? Then I see, goes out there, right, and puts on a great performance against Petr Yan. But now he's being tasked with something that's a little bit different, right? Yan is an extremely aggressive striker. That's what he likes to do. We talked about the fact he can mix it in a little bit, but has he really put on a proactive wrestling and grappling pace in most of his fights? That's not how he's trying to win most of his fights. He'd prefer to stand and strike with most people most of the time, by and large. TJ Dillashaw, he was really mixing in the wrestling aggressively against Corey Sandhagen, much more than I remembered. When I rewatched the fight, he was out there constantly pursuing takedowns, looking to control against the fence, looking to clinch up. And he did look like he had good timing, good reactions in the wrestling. Did he make some mistakes in the positional grappling? Yes, but he was almost always on top. So he never conceded a position where he was going to end up underneath. He would rather you break his leg than him end up underneath you. And he's an ornery prick. Again, one of my favorite expressions in fighting, but it's true about TJ Dillashaw, man. Talk about a guy who's mean. Talk about a guy who doesn't give a shit about you. He's willing to hurt you. He's, able to recover sometimes when he gets hurt really badly in fights as well. It happened against Garbrandt. He got hurt. He recovered, came back to win the fight. It happened in his most recent bout where Corey hit him with a couple of clean strikes, dropped him with a left hook. He popped right back up to his feet, and he was willing to get back in his face, keep throwing, keep exchanging. The guy's a psycho. So I really think that TJ Dillashaw, he presents really unique challenges for Aljamain. Here's the other problem that I have with Aljo. I go back, I find these old interviews because I had this nagging suspicion in the back of my head. Aljamain Sterling, 3, 4, 5 different interviews where he talked about, I want to get out of this sport young. I want to get in and get out. I want to win a title and be done. He won a title. It was controversial. Everybody gave him shit. They said he wasn't a real champion. He goes back out. Ultimate motivation spot. I need to win this fight for my legacy. I need to win this fight to be a real champion. I need to win this fight, to cement myself. And he does it. What could be a little bit of a letdown spot? I'm fighting the 37-year-old former champion who was on the juice, whatever. So now I should come in here and roll. I'm going to come in here and steamroll. I'm going to knock him out in the first round. That's what he said. I'm going to come out to my own song. I'm going to go record a movie. I'm going to go. A lot of things that go along with people losing fights. Doing too much shit on the outside, attracting too much negative attention on the outside, getting too distracted by other shit. The guy's doing sightseeing tours of Abu Dhabi and like hanging out in the pools with Muradov. Doesn't seem like he's very intense and focused. When we see Aljo start a fight, he typically comes out intense, focused, ready to go on from second one and brings the fight to somebody. So I think that Aljamain Sterling to win this fight in the first round or two is a live possibility. But I do worry that the longer this fight goes, Ipo Dillashaw is coming to play. The guy is clearly sauced to the fucking tits. Okay, he is coming in this fight on every supplement under the sun. I don't think that he cares if he, but like basically this is an all-in, right? If you're talking poker terms, my man just shoved. He has no other options. He's 37. He's not getting another title fight. So this is TJ Dillashaw's chance. That doesn't make me feel good about laying chalk. It does not. And I think on the feet, I would have to favor Dillashaw, even if it's slightly. I think Aljo could throw a lot of volume, keep him away. But I don't think Aljo can put this guy down at a very high clip unless he lands a meme head kick or something like that. So I think more often than not, the more dangerous striker is TJ, and I got to respect that. He landed a lot of really hard shots against Corey Sandhagen, knocked his head back, sent him flying across the ring a few times. Corey's one of the most durable bantamweights in the division. Aljo, if you had any criticism, it's the cardio and the durability. His skills are off the charts. The guy is unbelievable, and he can do it in all realms of fighting. He has absolutely boxed up Pedro Munoz, where Sean O'Malley had a really hard time doing that and lost the scorecards, right? My man Aljo went out there and Diddy bopped him on the feet like it was no big deal, kept him at bay, and kept something in his face the whole fight. I think for 2 rounds, we might see TJ Dillashaw get completely butchered, get his face split open, get walked onto a million shots. And if he continues to walk forward, I think he could finish Aljo in round 3, 4, or 5. Petr Yan, the difference was there. If you get caught in the back take scenario, it's exhausting for both guys. The fight is going to turn into a shit show. It's less likely that anybody finishes if you go through 2-3 rounds of that backpack, because now this guy's legs are dead and you are exhausted. You just had this guy on your back the whole time. You were nervous as shit. You had to hold on. You're anxious. That's going to create all this fatigue where they're not going to be in a great position moving forward. And Aljo's the one who suffered with that way more. TJ has been the guy getting 4th and 5th round knockouts earlier in his career, 3rd round knockouts more recently. The guy's just been there later in fights to find people and hurt them. And that's something I'm concerned about here. So as much as I love Aljo, based on all the shit that's gone on in the lead up to this fight, based on all the stuff outside the cage, I cannot lay chalk in this situation. It would be a prop. If anything, on Aljo, maybe to finish the fight inside the distance. I do feel like that's his best chance. I don't think it's his only chance to win the fight. To be clear, he is the younger guy here. He can bank rounds with that backpack style. But I think that TJ can stay in his face for the whole fight. And if he does not get submitted, I think he's going to present as an extremely live underdog. So, yeah, I can't discount TJ Dillashaw here. I got to give him that credit. Gordo, how do you feel about the fight?
Yeah, you did that very, very well. Great breakdown on your side of things there. I do think it's a very interesting matchup. I told myself straight up, I did my breakdown with Clint Tuesday night. Told myself I wasn't betting this fight. And the more you talk about it, the more Clint talks about it, the more I hear everybody talk about it. Dillashaw is getting appealing, but I got to stay true to my word. I don't think I can bet this fight from a money line perspective, just because I do think although TJ is going to have the advantage down the stretch, I think he's going to have the advantage in the power, in the striking, the durability, the cardio, the pace. Is he going to be, he's never fought somebody like this who's going to have the ability to backpack him. And we talk all the time about TJ never being held down, never being controlled. Well, we haven't really seen him face anybody like this. So although I do think that Dillashaw is a super live dog, probably my highest owned dog on DraftKings, I got to stay true to my word and not really bet this thing. I think I will. I think I'll go with Narco there and play the round 4 or 5 props. But I'm excited to hear what these two below me have to say. I truly had this one written down as a pass from a betting perspective and watch the fight because I do think it's a great fight. But I got to stick true to my guts here and let you guys really with the strong reads take over.
I love it. I love it, Gordo. Great breakdown. Lou, what do you got?
I always love when whenever Narco and I are aligned, like it just makes me feel so much better. If you watched the prop show earlier today, I gave out Dillashaw 4 or 5. I like him pre-fight, and I'm going to add to my position live after round 1 if I'm getting like plus 250, plus 300, which if Sterling does take him down and backpack him, you're probably getting close to plus 300 for Dillashaw after round 1. I'll just keep adding my position. In all fairness, you broke it down so good that all I'm going to add is this. The big difference for me, Dillashaw fights for my money. And I love betting a guy, win or lose. I mean, obviously I prefer to win, but win or lose, you never really go wrong long-term betting on these dudes that are dogs and fight for your money. And Dillashaw has been good to me over time. One last ride, TJ. Let's go.
Can't hate on any of that. Maps with a lot of what I'm thinking about this fight as well, Lou. So let's see if it is a sweep across the board. Wiz, what do you got here, my brother?
And new. Yeah. I like TJ here. I haven't bet him yet. I'm waiting to see if the line goes up a little bit more, so just to extract a little bit more value, maybe around like 165 to 170. Me and Narco were talking about it on my show a little bit earlier. But I favor the striking of Dillashaw. It's miles ahead of Aljos. It's miles ahead. And I think, quite frankly, the pace that Dillashaw keeps up is something that Sterling will not be able to keep up with. So in those first 2 rounds, you might see a fresh Sterling here. But starting round 3 going onwards, if he's not able to get the grappling going like he's used to, it's going to look ugly because he gasses out. And we saw how he looked against Yan. If Yan had any more gas in that 4th or 5th round, like he would have been able to finish Sterling, in my opinion. I know Narco mentioned that to me as well, so shout out to him. Yeah, man, I have to stick with Aljo here. Sorry, not Aljo. With TJ, so many names. With TJ here, just the striking and the power alone, I think he's going to be able to put him out in the later rounds. And Sterling doesn't like to be hit. If you've seen him react to strikes, it's not the most most pretty thing to see. His facial expressions every time he gets hit cleanly is not what you want to see as an Aljo backer. So give me TJ here. I'm looking for a live entry after 1 and after 2. I might get on it pre-fight. It just depends, because I'm not saying TJ can't win round 1 or 2 at all, but likely outcome is that Aljo's the line's either going to stay the same or increase for TJ. So that's why I'm more interested in the live side of things.
I like it, man. I think that makes sense. I think you probably will get a better price on TJ. The danger factor with that strategy is just like if TJ comes out there, wins round 1, he's probably even money, pick him at best, maybe looking at minus 120, minus 150, that kind of deal. But, paying for information oftentimes is worth it. If he goes out there and gets submitted in the first round, easy way to avoid the L. You get to see that information and save yourself that. So I think that's a perfectly potent way to try and target that. So don't disagree with you at all there. Guys, last thing.
What's up, sports bettors? I'm going to show you how you can make money sports betting. Big profits, sports betting, big wins. And the way to do it is positive EV betting. Of course, I'm not promising you're going to win every single bet. But when you're finding bets with a mathematical edge, such as Steelers plus 2.5 at plus 100, when the sharpest sports books are pricing it at minus 115, you're guaranteed to make money in the long run due to the law of large numbers. Here's another one. Twins Royals over 4.5. minus 105 odds. You got to be on this bet. Look at this. 2 sharpest sports books are pricing this minus 130, minus 123. This is a true pricing discrepancy. We're essentially finding a bet on sale you're getting insane value at minus 105 odds. So this bet has a 3.84% profit margin. If you're actually trying to become a sharp, profitable sports bettor and make a lot of money betting on sports, you need to be finding positive EV bets, bets with an edge, positive EV bets that have a mathematical edge over the sports book, and place as many as you can. You're basically forming your own hedge fund of mathematically profitable bets.
Guys, it's as simple as that. OddsJam, one of the easiest programs to use to improve your betting, your knowledge, your information, and the free resources they have can benefit you. You can shop lines. You can find better prices on the bets that you already want to make. But if you want to go even deeper, they have a extensive program where they can compare odds on multiple markets, on multiple sports in real time. It's an extremely useful tool. I use it myself every day. So guys, if you want more information, it is in the description box below. But now we've got the main event to break down, the fight everybody's been waiting for, the fight everybody has been thinking about this whole time. So they're still here. Don't you worry, folks. We got the greatest panel to break down the greatest fight that the UFC might offer us on this calendar year. So without further ado, I'm going to kick it first to my man, Gordo Gambles, Charles Dobronx, Oliveira, Islam Makhachev, the fight that will take the cake for the biggest fight of the night, the most anticipated. My brother, what do you got?
Dude, I'm so amped up. I just knocked over my mic like that. No, you said it. It is probably the fight of the year. And I've seen a lot of really hot takes on each side, and I have to fuel into it. You have such an intriguing matchup here with the dynamic, the finisher in Charles Oliveira, who looks like he's completely changed his career around to become a resilient fighter who does not really wake up until the fight is really halfway done. Really, he doesn't really wake up till he's been knocked out, kind of thing, right? So he's best when you almost kill him, and you got to really kill him, or else he's going to come back and kill you. So he's been really electrifying to watch. I love the guy, but he's getting a tough task ahead. And Islam Makhachev, although people can talk about his level of competition all they want, he is a generational type talent. He's the type of guy who's going to go out there, be as technically skilled as almost everybody else in the division, and do exactly what he has to do to win the fight. Of course, we've seen that deficiency in the chin. He's been knocked out. That's been talked about a lot this week, and of course, that's going to be something that is going to haunt him forever, because you know what? He slipped up and he got knocked out. But everything we've seen from him recently, especially from the offensive side of thing, has been almost flawless. He's been able to control a lot of people, take them down at will. You know exactly what Makhachev's game plan is going in. And both these guys are super hungry for the belt, especially Charles Oliveira. Again, this is another one where I sit back and I said, okay, I'm not really going to bet this fight. You have such good, intriguing matchup. I'm just going to sit back and watch as a fan. I was wrong. I do think that the line was mismatched, and I did take a shot on the Islam Makhachev side of things. And you know what? As a Charles Oliveira fan, I didn't necessarily like doing that. But really, when we look at this, it's more so not a fight that Charles Oliveira is going to dominate, in my opinion. It's a fight that Makhachev is going to be winning until he doesn't, kind of thing. I think it's Makhachev's fight to lose. He's going to have that minute winning ability. He's going to have the technique, the style to win this fight. And it's going to be up to Charles Oliveira to pull it out of his ass once again and win this fight. Of course, Charles Oliveira has that submission. He has that ability to go out there and submit anybody. We've seen that before, but he's also had the ability to be controlled on the mat. We've seen people control him for multiple rounds. Of course, that's the Oliveira that quit. That won't necessarily happen here, but he has been controlled before. And I do think that is a chance to happen again. The other thing that's really interesting in the spot, though, is the striking. Charles Oliveira's striking has definitely improved over the years. His power is no joke. Justin Gaethje really felt it here. And although it is something that is improving, I do think he has the edge over Makhachev here. However, every time I see this fight playing over in my head, it's going to be these lay and pray situations. It's not going to be as fun of a fight as I wanted, because Makhachev's style, although it is maybe not most entertaining some points, it is exactly what he has to do to win this fight, and that is control Charles Oliveira, in my opinion. So in the back of my mind, in my deep down in my heart, I am cheering for Charles Oliveira to get it done, to snatch a limb, to knock out Islam Makhachev. But I got to put my money where my research is, and I do think that Islam Makhachev has the ability to go out there and win this fight at a pretty high clip. I do think that his style is right for this one, and although I am cheering for Charles Oliveira, the money is on Islam Makhachev.
I can't dispute that, my man. I understand where you're coming from. I would not be surprised if we have a completely split panel here. I'm curious to hear what my man Lou Betcha has come up with for this one.
I'm not betting aside. I think the fight it's pretty fairly priced here. I think Makhachev at almost 2-1 for a guy who is a great minute winner is pretty fair. I love the over 1.5 here at minus 155, and I think I don't know why it's so low. This is the biggest fight. Look, there's a narrative side where this is literally the biggest fight, not just in their careers, but I mean, the scope of this is massive for like the future of 155, for 145 with Volkanovski there. I think Gamrot with a big win makes a case to get in there too. This is a massive fight that's going to change the landscape of a couple of divisions. And you look at Oliveira's, like, yeah, the first round of Oliveira's last few fights have been insane. Like the Chandler fight was a fucking insane first round. But this is a whole different stylistic matchup. And I think there's going to be a lot of tentative nature here. It's going to be Makhachev trying to avoid getting in a protracted striking battle. And it's going to be Oliveira avoiding getting put on his back and Makhachev just getting top control. I could see this thing kind of being a really slow build in the first round until Makhachev eventually gets a takedown. Once he gets a takedown, the fight's not over in 5 seconds for me. Makhachev, if he's going to win, I think it's going to be positional control for a while. He's going to try to wear Oliveira out. I don't think he's wrapping up the submission in like 5 seconds. I don't think he's getting mounted to a ground and pound immediately either. I think it's everybody has to mind their P's and Q's here. Makhachev has to be very alert on the ground to not get wrapped up in a triangle or anything or get reversed. And he has to be very alert on the feet, where I think Oliveira has a pronounced advantage. On the flip side of that, Oliveira, if this fight does hit the ground, he has to be super careful to not get positionally reversed and get dominated on the ground. So I think this is going to be these time props. They favor under 2.5 rounds, but this over 1.5 on DraftKings minus 155. I love it. I think this fight gets extended. I think it goes to the 3rd, 4th. There's a possibility this goes decision, but I would definitely do not want to take a poke at that. I'd be a little too scared for that one, but over 1.5 for me is a good look. And, I mean, this is a fight where maybe look at a live betting spot. If you don't think Oliveira is getting hurt, but getting dominated, you get a really good price on him, it might be worth a shot. But like Gordo, I'm rooting for Oliveira. I love watching the guy fight. I'm a fan of his. But I think probably Makhachev gets it done. Maybe eventually late finish possibly. But my prime bet for this fight is over 1.5.
Very interesting. One of my key targets for lightweight main events historically has been the under 2.5 rounds. Not every time, obviously it's got to fit some other criteria, but the Conor McGregor Poirier trilogy, I hit that every time that they fought. A couple other fights like that where, these lightweight main events, these guys get after it and really, put on high paced fights. But, I do acknowledge that this fight, because of, some of the interesting dynamics in terms of how they're grappling, could potentially nullify one another, and or the wrestling could keep it upright in the early going. I think that all could lead to the over 1.5, like you're talking about. So interesting fight to think about there from a time prop perspective. Gordo, shoot.
Oh, just because if you know what, Lou and I always do good when we think together. So if you look at those DraftKings CMT game parlays, you put Makhachev and the over 1.5 together, getting plus 170. Reversely, if you're on the Charles Oliveira side and you think that he wins this fight, you primarily think it's in the first 3 rounds. Charles Oliveira and under 2.5 plus 250. 2 ways of looking at it. Some way to get fun, but I'm really excited to hear what Wiz has to say about this too.
And with that, we kick it to Wiz.
Yeah, so if you look in the past 3 fights, Oliveira has been knocked down 4 times. The issue is with those fights, none of the fighters wanted to go to the ground with him. They fear the takedown and they fear the jiu-jitsu. So I don't think that's going to be a problem in this fight for Makhachev. Do I think he knocks him down? I'm not as confident as in the last 3 opponents because Makhachev just hasn't shown that much power in the hands. But we also haven't really seen that much of Makhachev in the striking department as a whole extensively because he usually just goes for takedowns. Now, do I think he's going to go and shoot for takedowns immediately? Probably not. It would be wise just because I don't think he wants to stay on the feet with Oliveira. If he does choose to do that, it's going to be a little bit hairy for the Makhachev ticket holders. Ultimately, I do think Makhachev wins this fight. It's very, very close. I do, and I probably will have a bet on Makhachev myself. I think the line is going to be as low as it gets for years. If he wins, I don't think we're going to see a line like this on Makhachev for a very long time if he does end up winning this belt. So I want to take advantage of it. I'm not going to say that there's no opportunity for Charles to win, but I'm playing out the scenarios in my head, and I don't think he gets that knockdown or that knockout like he is envisioning himself on these embedded episodes. Now, just reading through after these weigh-ins, apparently Volkanovski was called in the middle of the night by the UFC, and they stated that he has to be ready because one of the fighters is having trouble making weight. None of the fighters had trouble. They both made it at 154.5 pounds, but I'm assuming this is Islam Makhachev who struggled with the weight cut a little bit because Charles was ready as of last night. So just food for thought there. You never know what happens. But yeah, I'm predicting Makhachev to win this fight via 4th round TKO.
Well, this is the one, guys. This is the one that has kept me thinking. There was a time probably 2 weeks ago when I was strongly considering max betting Islam in this fight. The reason being was just because I thought the stylistic dynamic was going to give Charles some problems. You know, if he was being held down, if he was being controlled on the mat. You know, there's one thing about, you know, getting outstruck a little bit on the feet. Like, his primary game is the grappling. So he always had that as the fallback. We talk about, you know, some guys wouldn't go into his guard and this and that. But the truth is, like, he just knew this is my A1 default game plan. Anything goes wrong, I go to the ground, I can figure it out. And I think if that's not available to him, that could be something that compromises his confidence, which is important to have in a cage fight. That being said, you know, I do somewhat resent the idea that it's going to be just an easy, you know, takedown city every time that he goes for it. Like, Charles is an awkward build guy, and his best attributes are potentially in the clinch, you know, especially in recent performances. Like, how has he been able to break these guys? You know, he's used his grappling, sure, but most of the damage has been done from the collar tie. It's been done from the clinch. It's been done from in close. It's been done with an overhook. And Islam likes to hang out in the clinch. You know, the more I watched his fights, the more I saw, like, he kind of gets lazy at times where he's leaning over into the clinch and just throwing those like loose body shots, because all he really cares about is tripping you. So he's not thinking about the strikes and really doing damage. In my opinion, he's more focused on, all right, I'm going to off balance him, turn his shoulders and flop him to the mat. And that has been very successful for him. But now he's got somebody in Charles who, number one, he's experienced in both Muay Thai and in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu and in wrestling. He's not going to be easy to trip, right? Like, tripping is a part of all those sports, something that you have to have as a necessary skill to defend. How do most guys take down Charles Oliveira? Doubles and singles. And why does Charles concede a lot of those takedowns? He's a submission hunter. He's looking for the guillotine, right? I like the guillotine. I'll feed people hips sometimes. And then I try and get myself an out where I can either cut the angle, try and take the leg, go behind them, or I could look for that guillotine choke in the front. And Charles has done that a number of times. He's got an excellent front choke series. I think that Islam is wise not to go below, you know, the knee line on somebody like Charles, because that's where he could get caught in those front headlock series where he probably doesn't want to be overall. You know, people talk about Paul Felder survived the series, not without issue. Like, it was a absolute hellacious grind for Paul. And I really think the reason he TKO'd him is because he was so goddamn pissed when he came out of that choke. He was like, you just tried to hurt me so bad. You just had me seeing stars and all this stuff. And he just got on top of him and started pounding, right? I think that Islam's not really that guy. You know, where besides the Bobby Green fight, where he was literally feeling no duress, where he felt like he could easily pass, he got to a dominant position, he started opening up. Even that didn't look like the most hellacious ground and pound. It just needed to be stopped because we all knew Bobby wasn't getting up. You know, it was just, the fight was over. But it wasn't like a brutal beatdown that's so hard to watch and like, oh my God, is Bobby Green going to be okay? Let's go check on Bobby Green. Bobby Green was fine. He popped back up. He shook his hand. Hey, man, you're really good at this. Great job. I think that Charles, you know, is he more likely to break down the stretch? Yeah, I think that's probably fair. But in the early going, who's more likely to bring a chaos and a pressure that makes somebody break before shit has gone completely sideways? I think that's Charles, man. I just think he's a really dangerous guy. He's extremely unorthodox. He has skills in all positions. He's not going to give up a bad position unless he really feels like he's got the finish. I think he's gotten better at staying upright intentionally when he's in the wrestling positions. And also, we've seen him do much better dominating people from the clinch. Tony Ferguson hasn't been summarily out-wrestled and out-grappled by everybody. Most of the guys that have done it are extremely high level. Beneil Dariush comes to mind as well, another ADCC level grappler. So there's no slouches that have just been running through Tony Ferguson in the grappling. Nate Diaz, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt for, 10 years. Like, the guy's been around a very long time. He's very credible in the Jiu-Jitsu as well. So I think that Makhachev, he did a great job dominating the likes of Drew Dober, Bobby Green. Those are good wins. They're credible, but this is a step up in competition, no doubt about that. And like, Charles put together a whole win streak of wins over a similar quality of competition that were all by dominant finish. Most of the wins haven't aged very well. Dan Hooker can't buy a win right now in the UFC, God bless him. But these are the kind of things that give me some pause and some hesitation when I also see that the bookmakers are respecting the shit out of the money that's coming in on Charles. Like, I know that people have the opinion that Charles is the public side here, which I could see, right? And I'm not even denying it. He might end up being the public side here, but I also think there's going to be a lot of big sharp money that comes in on Islam. I think there's going to be sharp players that can't resist this price on Oliveira. I don't know what this closing number is going to look like, but I have a feeling it's going to get even closer before it closes. I don't know that it's going to keep running out in one direction, to be honest with you, because they've already given up a 2-to-1 threshold. They've already come in for minus 200. Now they're going back and forth a little bit over that line. And for me, that makes it extremely hard to read the market on this fight as well. But for all those reasons, you've got a champion who is on an insane run, who's got a lot of wins, who's got a lot of credibility behind him. And I keep making a mistake in Charles Oliveira fights, which is I keep betting the underdog. And when he's not the underdog, I keep losing the bet. You understand? Like, I've had a pretty good read on this guy. I've been betting him as an underdog against Tony Ferguson. I bet him as an underdog in the fight against Dustin Poirier as well. Bet him by sub, bet him inside the distance. Had a pretty decent read on those. The one thing that I think people are discounting is they say if he gets hurt on the feet, talking about Makhachev, he could just shoot a takedown and get on top of Charles. If you shoot a takedown while hurt or tired on Charles Oliveira, you are liable to get submitted. That's just a historical fact. We can find a lot of examples, and I was certain that he was about to lose to Kevin Lee. I was like, man, Kevin keeps getting these easy money takedowns, keeps passing the guard. Looked to me like Charles was ready to break on bottom. He goes for one bad shot, and the fight's over. He's instantly choked. He had no recourse. He was completely dead to rights on that choke, and it was over. That's the kind of thing Charles is capable of. He doesn't need to be winning the whole fight. He needs to win 5 seconds, and the fight could be over shortly thereafter. He is one of the most lethal, quick, dynamic finishers in the history of the UFC. So for all those reasons, I cannot fade him as an underdog once again here. Haven't decided if I'm going to get to the window yet. Still a little bit more research to be done overnight, but ever so slight lean to the underdog, Charles Oliveira. I think it's going to be a hell of a fight. I think that if you wanted to make a pre-fight favorite based on the style dynamic, I understand why it's Makhachev, but by golly, going back, rewatching these fights, man, Charles Oliveira does seem like a different fighter in his recent performances. He does seem like a guy who's willing to take more damage. And the confidence that he's bringing into this fight, I don't think is a facade. I do think he's as confident as he says he is. So you're going to have to break him for real to win the fight. I think Islam could do that, but I don't think it's a foregone conclusion. I think it's going to be a hell of a scrap. So guys, 2 hours, 37 minutes, an absolute killer panel, absolute genius breakdowns from all these guys. Couldn't thank you guys enough. Sharpest chat in the game. 82 people still rocking with us live at 2:47 a.m. in the East. So, guys, I want to thank each and every one of you guys, most especially the gentleman that made some time to be on the show tonight. And then I want to kick it to you guys with an opportunity to tell the people where they can find you. I know my man Wiz and Lou have been putting together an NFL show that's going to benefit you for this Sunday. I know my man Gordo continues to crush on Plays and Fades YouTube channel, all these different DFS markets that you can crush, including MMA. So, guys, check out all their content. And I'm going to kick it to my man Gordo first to tell you where you can find more information.
Whew, what a show, guys. And it is pretty late here. I do have to work in a couple hours, but there's nobody else I'd rather be doing shows with right now. I missed the 4 horsemen. I'm happy to be back together. And for a card like this, it was only right to be doing a show. So I appreciate you for having me on. Appreciate the guys below me for giving their insight, and wish you guys all best of luck. In terms of my content, you can find my work on the Plays and Fades YouTube channel in the description down below. I posted my DFS video. I posted my full card breakdown with Clint from the Die Hard MMA podcast. Tons of content all the time. Check it out on that YouTube below. In terms of me and my bets, I'll be posting them tomorrow afternoon on my Twitter at GamblesGordo. If you got any questions, feel free to DM. And other than that, guys, enjoy the fights. Like I said, card of the year, super pumped to watch it all. So everybody set your alarms, enjoy the fights, and best luck to all you guys.
Absolutely love it. Check it out. Plays and Fades YouTube. Get subscribed, and at Gordo Gambles, go ahead and follow him on Twitter. One of the sharpest guys out, putting out a ton of free information that will benefit you tremendously. So do yourself a favor. Go follow Gordo. Lou, where can the people find you, brother?
Thanks for having me on again, by the way. I always feel like my bets are better going over this thing. I mean, like, I love that we have a good active chat, but I love talking to the three of you guys. And like, especially, and recently Gordo and Wiz, like when we go over football, like always feel better getting those like second and third set of eyes. So love hearing all the takes. Find me on the MMA Engine, Wheezy, Brady, Monk. We all do shows in there, DFS, gambling stuff. Please go check out my prop video I made earlier with the one and only Paul Shaughnessy, making a rare appearance off the Mayo Media Network. Took time out of his Canadian. I know, all I work with is Canadians now. It's weird. It's like, Gordo, Locke, Paul. But we did a nice little 25-minute video today, just breaking down some props that I talked about today. And watch, and when after the fight Saturday, when you're gearing up for Sunday, I'll just lead into Wiz with this one. There may be a new show on his channel that maybe prepares you for your Sunday slate. So want to follow me on Twitter. Can't say I'm the greatest gambler, but I am entertaining.
Hell yeah. Thank you, Uncle Lou, for coming through once again. And Wiz, why don't you tell the people about the show that he referenced there?
Of course. And thanks again for having me. Guys, it's been a pleasure, as always. You can find me at WizBets on Twitter and on YouTube. We launched a show. Lou and I launched it this morning or afternoon my time. It's called NFL Bell. We go over all the spreads, props, totals for the upcoming NFL week. It's before the Thursday night game, so it gets you prepped nice and early. So give that a note. And yeah, guys, it's always been a pleasure. And thanks again, Liam. This is great.
Absolutely, guys. We got the panel back together once again. It was a big occasion. We had to make it for the people. So going to try and make this a more regular occurrence. Going to try and find a time that works maybe a little better for our man Gordo as well, soldiering into the night. So with that being said, guys, I'll make my outro very quick here. At Liam Picks Fights, you could find me on Twitter. You could find this channel and all my other work by the same name, Liam Picks Fights. Please go ahead and drop a like on this video if you've enjoyed it. Go ahead and get subscribed to the channel if you're not already. Each and every week coming at you with a UFC breakdown. I don't like to brag on the show and this kind of thing, but somebody's got to say it, right? Nobody else is going to say it but me. Nobody else gives a shit. So the truth is, like, this show has given out over 100 units of profitable information over the course of the year. It doesn't come by accident either. It comes from a lot of hard work, time, effort, energy that gets invested in it. I have over 20 pages of notes on the two fighters that are involved in the main event, and I don't even have a bet on the fight yet. So this is the kind of thing that I try and do my due diligence and come armed with some information that whether or not you end up on the same sides, you can come out a more informed gambler on the other side. You'll think about the markets. You'll think about how these things interact. So that's what I'm looking to do. If you want more information from me, guys, all the information you need is in the description box below. Want to thank our two sponsors for today's show, Prize Picks, simplest game in all of DFS. Use my promo code Liam. It helps me out. It helps you out. They'll deposit match you 100% up to $100. And OddsJam, the source of all the odds that we've given out on the show tonight, where you can get the best odds for the bet you're already going to make. Why would you not place it at the best odds? Save yourself some money, make money long-term by being a smart sports bettor. That's all for me, folks. God bless you all. Enjoy the shit out of this insane weekend of fights. I know that I'm going to be doing the same, and I hope the same for you guys. Come back next week. We're going to have all the same fun again. Take care until then. Have a good night, guys.